Welcome everyone to our Delray Oaks City Council meeting. It is so great to see everyone. I love it when we have a packed chambers. So thank you for coming. Got a lot of VIPs in the audience, and we're gonna recognize some members of the Moose Lodge today as well. But before we get to all that, Karen, can I have roll call?
Bresson.
Here.
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 Here. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, next we have public comment. General public comment must deal with matters subject to the jurisdiction of the city and the council that are not on the agenda. Anyone wishing to address the city council on matters not appearing on the agenda may do so now. There'll be a time limit of no more than 3 minutes. Public comments now open.
Good evening. Dennis Allian, Delray Oaks, 4 Los Encinos Drive. Two things. First of all, I want to express some gratitude to the Delray Oaks City Police Department. My wife's cell phone was on the back of my car, unbeknownst to me, and took off, went and made the turn on the General Jim Moore Road, and that's apparently where the phone flew off. And this is a recommendation for everybody. If you haven't already done it, make sure you're registered with the county for the emergency services, because I got a phone call shortly thereafter from the Delray Oaks Police Department telling me, well, first of all, I had a notice saying that my wife's cell phone had been involved in a car crash. And it was at the intersection of Canyon Del Rey and General Jim Moore Road, which I knew wasn't really where she was. She was off doing Meals on Wheels for Pacific Grove. Officer Nguyen called me, told me that he had the phone. I then put 2 and 2 together and figured out what had happened, retrieved the cell phone, and it was very interesting. Second thing is, there was a gentleman a few meetings ago, maybe the last meeting, that talked about speeding on Carlton Drive, and when we reopened that Carlton, and it made me think back to the meetings that we had all those years ago where we talked about speeding on Carlton Drive, and we had the traffic expert come in and talk about, well, you know, the problem is it's too wide, and that people see wide open spaces, they like to speed. The same thing is happening on Via Verde. Via Verde has problems with people speeding. And this is one of those things where we can't have enough police officers to enforce the law. In sports, we have a morality issue here. People just don't slow down. But I wanted to register that with the city, that you have a problem with speeding on Via Verde. And other than that, I really appreciate what the police department did. That was really great. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
I'm Celine Pinnick. I live on Serrano Way, and I wanted to thank the city because their website is so much better. It is so great. I've been on it recently, and it's changed, and it's just thank you for the hard work, whomever was involved. That's all I have to say.
Thank you for that. Is there any other public comments? Okay, seeing none, I'll move on to our next item. We have 2 proclamations. The first one is honoring Black History Month, and that proclamation reads as follows. Whereas the city of Delray Oaks is committed to diversity, equity, inclusion, and mutual respect as a fundamental aspect of a healthy, thriving community. And whereas in 1976, as part of the nation's bicentennial, Black History Month was formally adopted to honor and affirm the importance of African American history throughout our American experience and serves to promote cultural enrichment, ethnic pride, and self-esteem. And whereas during Black History Month, we celebrate the many achievements and contributions made by African Americans to our economic, cultural, spiritual, and political development. And Black History Month is a time for all Americans to remember the stories and teachings of those who helped build our nation, took a stance against prejudice, to build lives of dignity and opportunity, advance the cause of civil rights, and strengthen families and communities. And whereas the Black community has been the target of discrimination and violence based on identity, which conflicts with our core values as a community. And whereas the observance of Black History Month calls our nation's attention to the continued need to battle racism and look to a future to continue to improve society so that we live up to the ideals of freedom, equality, and justice. Now, therefore, I, Scott Donaldson, do hereby proclaim February of 2026 as Black History Month. And I urge all citizens to celebrate our diverse heritage and culture and continue our efforts to create a world that's more just, peaceful, and prosperous for all. Okay, our next proclamation is honoring Women's History Month. And with that, I'll turn it over to Councilmember Shirley.
Thank you, Mayor. All right, celebrating March 2026 Women's History Month. Whereas March is National Women's History Month, and whereas we recognize the invaluable contributions of women who have dedicated themselves to advocating for equity, diversity, and inclusion in all aspects of society. And whereas women from diverse backgrounds have long been at the forefront of efforts to address systemic inequities and promote a more inclusive and just society. And whereas the courageous advocacy of women for practical goals such as equity, diversity, and inclusion serves as a beacon of inspiration for all individuals and communities. And whereas in 2026, we honor the women who have tirelessly worked to dismantle barriers, challenge prejudices, and create opportunities for all individuals, regardless of their background, and attacks against diversity, equity, and inclusion programs and training in our institutions. Now, therefore, it be it resolved that Mayor Scott Donaldson does hereby proclaim March 2026 as Women's History Month in the city of Delray Oaks. And be it further resolved that we encourage our communities to celebrate the achievements of women who have championed equity, diversity, and inclusion, and reaffirm our commitment to advancing these principles in our society. Let us honor the women who have dedicated themselves to advocating for equity, diversity, and inclusion, and let us continue to work together to build a more just and equitable and inclusive world. Signed this day, Scott Donaldson.
Okay, next is the item that a lot of you are here for. It's a presentation, certificate of recognition for a couple of our Moose Lodge members, Star Hernandez and Adil Acton. But before I present those certificates, I would like to turn the floor over to Mark for any comments that you may have.
Okay. All right, perfect. My name is Mark Ariano. I'm the administrator at Monterey Moose Lodge 876. Although we called Monterey Moose Lodge, we are proud to be in the city of Delray Oaks. Every year there's a scholarship program where students are encouraged to go through a process, a very competitive process to win scholarship money. We haven't had a kid make it into the national program in years. Last year, 7 kids from the state of California made it into the finalists. 3 of those kids, of the 7 in California, were from little old Delray Oaks. And of those 3 kids, the #1 kid in the country, Victor Torres, was a Marina High School student, won first place, won $12,000 last year.
Wow.
Unheard of to have that happen in our great little metropolis of Delray Oaks. So we tried to repeat that great success. So we rallied up some of the best students that we could find in the area. And of the 5 students in California that are going this year, 2 of them are from our lodge. Again, unheard of. So we are super, super stoked. Uh, last year's student was from Marina High School, but we had kids that participated. We had 130 students show up for the orientation for it, and I think 54 kids that actually participated and competed at the local level. We had Monterey High, Seaside High, York, Montevideo. We literally every school in the area this year. The 2 finalists that are going to get an all expense paid trip are from from Seaside High School and from Monterey High School. And they're both here, so I'll turn it over to you and let you do your thing.
All right.
I
Mark,
appreciate
thank
it.
you.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Okay, before I present the certificates of recognition, I just want to read to you what they say. This certificate is given to Adil Acton of Monterey High and Star Hernandez of Seaside High in recognition of being chosen to attend the 2026 Moose International Youth Awareness Scholarship Program, representing the Monterey Moose Lodge, located in Delray Oaks. As one of only 5 students in California to attend, your hard work and dedication are commendable. And it's signed Scott Donaldson, Mayor of Delray Oaks. So with that, I would like Adil and Star to come forward so I can present that to you.
Don't be shy.
Let's get going with just our moment. Yeah, absolutely. No, you bring it all right. Bring it here. Yeah. Before you go, Mayor, we're putting out of your way and let you guys do real business now.
Thank you, Mark.
Thank you. We appreciate it.
Congratulations.
Good with them. Yeah.
Okay, and then next we have another presentation which I know will be as equally as exciting. It's an update from Monterey One Water. I serve as your representative on the Monterey One Water Board, and I'm just so happy and honored that our general manager, Paul Shudo, is here to present to you all an update on the latest happenings at Monterey One Water. So Paul, welcome. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Mayor Donaldson. I'm going to have a little bit of a complex. I get up here and everyone leaves. But Mayor, council members, thank you very much for the opportunity to present to you. This is just a bit of an update about Monterey One Water, some projects we have going on, what we've accomplished, as well as a rate study that we're embarking upon. I haven't been in front of the council in a while, so it's great to be back. And so I appreciate the time. Next slide, please. So as Scott mentioned, my name's Paul Shudo. I'm the executive officer at Monterey One Water. And so we are, as you probably know, the wastewater recycled water facility regionally. So our mission, as you see up here, is to work together for safe, resilient water solutions. And we try to focus on water and energy, certainly serving the community, trying to be an employer of choice. These are our strategic goals. Having an appropriate use of technology and having a position within the industry so we can affect policy that affects all of us. Next slide, please. So what do we do? As you can see here, wastewater conveyance. The city, which is certainly part of Seaside County Sanitation District, your conveyance of wastewater is from the house to our facilities is with that. We take it when it gets to the big pipes. Pump stations, about 30 miles of large force mains, wastewater treatment. And there is where our mission changed many years ago. And Mr. Allian here was on our board back when these decisions were made, and I think they were very good for our community. Trying to reuse all those resources. So as you see, recycled water for agricultural irrigation. We provide irrigation water to about 12,000 acres of cropland in the Salinas Valley. We also have potable reuse, and I'll touch on it in a little more detail later, but we are producing recycled water that is purified to drinking water standards. We're producing about 60% of the potable water demand in the Monterey service area of California American Water. And then lastly, we've embarked upon an energy master plan to try to enhance our renewable energy at the treatment plant. For about 35 years, we've used biogas to generate electricity through cogeneration. And we're just trying to expand on that. With our current board, they've allowed us to move forward with co-digestion of food waste. So all that does is bring more BTUs and generate more gas that we can do fun things with. Fun things if you're a geeky engineer. The fun things are conditioning it to the point where we have renewable natural gas that we can either sell back to PG&E, or we purchased some new generators, a new technology called linear generators that have less emissions to produce electricity for our own treatment plant. So that's sort of the good news. Next slide, please. Trying to make it happy. Our treatment plant turned about 35 years old last year, hence the balloons. As you can imagine, in a wastewater environment, in a marine environment, that can be very difficult on infrastructure, concrete, steel, etc. So with that, next slide, please. Thank you. What do? Oftentimes, it's a bit of a silent service. We manage for all of you about $1 billion worth of assets at our treatment plant, our pump stations, our recycled water facility. That's a lot for 65,000 customers. One would think if you're in LA, if you're in San Francisco, you have a much larger customer base. So we're trying to be as judicious as we can in what we do. However, as I mentioned, 35 years old, we need to replace, we need to renew. So public works in action from our perspective. Pump station upgrades. Those pump stations are 30, 40 years old. Same thing with the treatment plant. Our employees do a wonderful job maintaining everything we have, but there does come a point where you need to reinvest versus just, well, if it's me, I'm using duct tape and cable ties. Our maintenance guys are much better than that, and women. Also, replacement and being more efficient. As one can imagine, the influx of technology and instrumentation in controlling all of these facilities, it's pretty significant in terms of the amount of programmable logic controllers, instrumentation, certification, and so on down the line. Next slide, please. So what's in the works? And what I mean by what's in the works is what's in our 10-year capital plan where we need to invest in our infrastructure. A lot of it is electrical reliability. Our electric system around that treatment plant is towards the end of its useful life, and we're embarking upon a project, frankly, as we speak. This week, it was bid last year. It takes a long time to procure some of this electric equipment. When we're talking about the size that we're looking at, it's an 18-month lead time, which it didn't always used to be this way. Prior to COVID, you could get things, 6, 8, 10 months. Things have changed in this industry where it just takes a long time. And another large endeavor is a treatment plant master plan, looking at our 35-year-old treatment plant and what we need to invest, and frankly, what would be more efficient moving into the next generation. And then biosolids management. obviously, when wastewater comes in, as we're cleaning it up, there is a resulting biosolid, which we need to deal with. Certain state regulations that have come out in recent years preclude disposing of it at the landfill. So we're looking for other ways to reuse that material. Next slide, please. So I did want to sort of step back because I get this question quite a bit of, well, do our rates go to the ag irrigation or do our rates go to the potable water? And we operate in discrete enterprise funds. So our wastewater customers and the rates they pay go to pay for the wastewater treatment and reinvestment. Same thing for the recycled water for non-potable, and same with our pure water Monterey. You'll see the fourth one on there is energy. We've stood up a fourth enterprise fund with the thought of there will be expenses, but there'll be revenue coming in. So it'll be a self-sustaining enterprise fund that can benefit the other three in terms of lower electricity rates. So what I want to focus on tonight, if that's okay from here on out, is primarily the wastewater fund, because that's what we're trying to propose to our board to potentially raise rates. So next slide, please. So how do we support those priorities that I mentioned out? Well, one is to look at a rate model. And I think you're all familiar with it. You do it at the city level. We look at what is our operations and maintenance costs, our salaries and benefits, and our capital improvement projects. You put that not quite into a black box, but with our rate consultant to understand what our revenue requirement is based on those 65,000 accounts. Based on the rate structure, we then produce a rate schedule, if that makes sense. Of our 65,000 accounts, about 45,000 are all residential. I'm sorry, single family residential. Then we have some multifamily that are built into there, and then ballpark around 6,000 accounts of commercial. So with that, next slide, please. What drives those rates? And we all see it. We all pay our PG&E bill, et cetera, et cetera. We want to have reliable service. So hence the reason investing, having redundancy, keeping things working properly. But there's also those rising costs of electricity, of chemicals, and then those projects that I mentioned. It is somewhat daunting to look at a 10-year plan where we are going to invest in our infrastructure. Engineers' best estimates at this point over a 10-year time frame is $500 million. So how do we fund that? Partially through rates, low interest loans that we have received from the state and the federal government, bond issuance, and we're always knocking on the door for grant funding. I want to come back for a second to chemicals and electrical. These are ballpark numbers, but I was shocked to see our electrical and gas usage for our entire facility is over $9 million a year just for electrical. So you can understand why our board has said you need to pursue renewable energy as best as you can to try to curb some of those costs. Chemical costs, which has been also skyrocketing because lack of competition throughout the industry, were about $8.3 million just in chemicals. So on the O&M side, there's a lot that unfortunately we can't control at this point, but we're trying to get a handle on it, certainly on the energy side of things. Next slide, please. So what does this rate setting look like? We actually had a board meeting last night, and we did talk to our board about what the rate structure we'd like to see, and they told us what to do. We'll be coming back to them with that revenue requirement, and based on the rate structure, what those rates are proposed to be. I can't sit here right now and tell you it's going to be an X% increase or whatever it may be, but we're developing that. Currently, our single family home rate is $54 per month. So to put in context, and I'm going to throw out a number that we've been playing with the rate consultants to see if the revenue requirement can be met. Ballpark, probably an 8% increase, which is relatively large. that results in what I think a $4.32 per month increase to support this $500 million worth of projects and electricity, et cetera, where it comes in for the public, and certainly I hope that all of you can convey this to your constituents, is we operate under a Proposition 218 process where we send notices of any proposed rate increase to every customer. In a 45-day period, you have the opportunity to mail in comments, email comments, come to our board meetings, and then the board in the June timeframe will make the decision on what to do. We, as staff and our rate consultants, are proposing what we think is best for the agency and the community and trying to attenuate costs as best as we can. But ultimately, it is the board, just like your council does, that decides the rates. So there is that opportunity for public feedback and talking to our board, frankly. Next. So with that, I'm going to move off of rates, saying we do focus on the community. And I think that can be shown in the fact that it's not just wastewater treatment. We're producing water for agricultural irrigation in the Salinas Valley. We're producing potable water for our community and trying to go beyond it with renewable energy. So on the plus side, I'm really happy to see that just like last year, we brought on, which is the next slide. Actually, can we go to that one, please? Our Pure Water Monterey project, we just brought on in October an expansion of the original project, which started in 2020. And that goes to the 60% of the potable water demand in this community is produced in our little plant there. On a side note, if you look, I don't know if you can read it or not. The overall project cost was around 63 million bucks. So it was a decent sized project. Our team did such a phenomenal job from a legislative and grant writing perspective that 2/3 of those costs were covered by grants, primarily federal, but also some state grants coming into this community. That's unusual, so I certainly hope the board doesn't assume that's the baseline we're going to hit from now on out, but I do like to point that out. Also last year, we stood up our food waste receiving station, which is the first of its kind for a municipality in Northern California. And we're bringing food waste and we're increasing our biogas production so we can produce more energy. So we got a lot done last year in addition to just operating the place. Next slide, please. With that, I can certainly answer any questions. And once again, thank you for the time to be able to go over this.
Oh, thank you, Paul. I'll start with the council for any questions or comments. And Council Member Uy, I'll start with you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you, Paul, for coming over here and briefing us about some of the future plans for Monterey One. So, as someone who came to this country from a third world country, I really deeply appreciate reliable water. So we're very grateful that in here we always have water coming, flowing to our faucets. And however, I also acknowledge that here in the city of Delray Oaks, many of our residents are on fixed or limited incomes. And as Monterey One Water would plan these infrastructures for the future, so how are you working to balance the infrastructure needs? I know you have brought up those needs that we need to have them in order to have reliable water, and balance it with affordability for smaller cities like Delray Oaks.
Thank you very much for that question. So when we do our engineering evaluation, oftentimes we start off with a condition assessment. So to understand the existing state of our infrastructure, based on that, we go through a fairly rigorous process to evaluate alternatives. And I'm going to just a couple examples. If you have concrete tanks, can we reuse those? Can we rehab them? Do we need new stuff? Or is it actually less expensive in the long run to build a new one? So what we ended up doing, in fact, this is to our treatment plant master plan, we went through this process and looking at 3 different alternatives. Well, it starts much larger. You distill it down to 3 different alternatives. And then we do a cost evaluation from a 30-year net present value. So not just looking at the capital costs, but also those operation and maintenance costs over time. So we try to be judicious in terms of selecting a process and project that is cost effective and optimizes all of our funds. Having said that, even when that comes to us, there's times where my finance director and myself look at what engineering believes we need to do, and if it's not doable, we extend it out. So if they'd like to do it in 5 years, it's like, well, no, you're gonna have to do it in 7 or 8, and then you turn to your maintenance person and go, can you keep it running for another 3 years? Or what's the potential consequences of not doing this work? And oftentimes, as you noted, not having effective or consistent wastewater treatment, environment, health, all that good stuff. So, and then the third level, besides me being Scrooge McDuck and saying, no, you can't spend the money, we then take it to our board, and we have to provide a compelling argument for everything on that sense. In terms of fixed income and low income, our board has developed a customer assistance program to assist with rates over time. We fund that through non-rate revenue as allowed by the state of California, and it tries to help out as best as we can. I will say last year we used up the funds that were allocated. About 900 individuals benefited. We did have about 50 that had applied, but we ran out of the funds. So that's something we'll be coming to the board of, do we want to try to fund it more and just help out the community?
Yeah, thank you so much, Paul, for your leadership. And then now I could see there's really like a lot of thought that goes into that. Like, at least it gives me relief that we just don't raise rates for the sake of raising rates. So but I really appreciate for your advocacy for us residents who may be in limited income or fixed income. So thank you.
Thank you.
Right,
Mr. Mayor.
Councilmember Howard.
Thank you, Mayor. I have no questions at this time. Just thank you for visiting the city of Delray Oaks and providing us with this very informative presentation to the council and to our immediate community. Thank you.
All right, Councilmember Shirley.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Paul, for being here. It's always good to get a reminder of all the things you do because I think it's super fascinating. So thank you. And Regen is super excited about selling you energy. So
I didn't touch on that.
No.
And that is super exciting.
yes,
Um,
yes.
This week, we're starting a project to construct some electrical gear, switch gear, where Regen, we're going to land a power line. So we'll be powering our advanced water purification facility entirely with landfill gas renewable energy. And I think it's a cool story because we're recycling wastewater for potable use using entirely renewable energy from the landfill.
Yeah. Yeah. It is a great story.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So and we've been waiting for it for a long time
Yeah.
and now it's coming to fruition. So we're really excited about
Yeah.
it. Thank you. In terms of the rate study, can you remind me when the last time we did a rate study?
It was 5 years ago.
Okay.
And at that point in time, our board of directors voted on the Prop 218 for a 5-year. And so we're at the end of the 5-year.
Okay.
The last increase to our rates was last July. We had a 6% rate increase, and now we're reevaluating.
Okay. And so then what would be the time period for this rate study? How long would that last?
So I would like to have a 5-year, and the reason I would like to have a 5-year is to provide some financial certainty on our planning effort. As you know, I mentioned all the projects that are out there. To have that certainty of whatever the rates are going to be helps out in the planning. It also helps out in understanding what our reserves can be so we can hopefully elevate our bond rating to get better interest rates, because
Yeah.
we can't do this pay as you go. We're going to
Right.
have to do some borrowings. Having said that, ultimately it is up to the board on anything from 1 year to 5 year, and that's the max that we could do.
I see. Okay, great. That's it. Thank you.
Mhm.
Appreciate you
Right.
being here.
Vice Mayor Berger.
Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you for coming. This is very enlightening. What an endeavor. Project this magnitude facility and service improvement project. I mean, that's a lot of work. And it sounds like it's going to deliver a lot of benefit and long-term future use and infrastructure growth. And that said, if the true cost to the public is about $4 a month to achieve this, I think that's a bargain. And I agree with Councilmember Uy that, we have to be conscious of people of limited income sources, budgeted incomes. And I think that the alternative would probably not make this look too bad. So thank you very, very much. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Okay, I'd like to take this opportunity to take it out to the public. If you have any questions or comments, please come up to the podium.
So I think one of the things you should have pointed out and didn't is that there was a 10-year period of time where we did not raise rates. It was from roughly 2000 to 2010. There was no increase, and that ignores the fact that you got an aging facility out there and needs to be refurbished and rebuilt. So that was an important thing. Secondly, in conjunction with that, it might be helpful, and it might not, but it might be worth looking into, is to do a study to see what has been the actual inflation rate for the last 35 years to see how's that compare to inflation in general. So that's a suggestion. You could, if you haven't done it, take a look at it, see if it has bad news, don't tell people.
Which is why I didn't say any of that stuff. Can I mention?
Absolutely.
So Dennis is absolutely right. There was actually a 12-year period in a row where we didn't have any rate increase, and 14 out of 17. So yeah, that compounding effect over time, our rates are, when you look at comparable agencies, our rates are well below the average. We did look 5 years ago on what the compounding, just CPI was going to be, and it was far greater than where we're at. Another way to look at it is our operations and maintenance and salaries and benefits are CPI, but our construction costs, which is 40% of our budget, is far greater than that. And we used Engineering News Record. So yeah, I didn't bring it up because I didn't want to start twitching.
Okay, are there any other public comments or questions? All right. Seeing none, Paul, thank you for taking the time to come here and update us. Just so many exciting things happening in Monterey One Water, and I appreciate you telling us about it.
Once again, thank you for the time. Invite all of you to come out for a tour. Like you said, there is a lot of infrastructure. We got about 100-acre campus out there with stuff on it, and feel free to come on out. Also, I love that this is angled to be able to talk to everyone. I always hate having my back to people. So that's great.
Great feedback. All right. Thank you again, Paul. Okay, I'll move on to the next item, which is the consent agenda. Are there any members of the council that would like to pull any item? Okay. Are there any members of the public that would like to pull an item from the consent agenda? Okay, seeing none, I'll accept a motion.
So moved.
Okay,
Second.
Second. We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, motion passes. Next item is old business, which we have none. So I'll move on to new business. And that's item 8A, which is the status of development of city-owned parcels on the former Fort Ord. And I'll hand it over to the city manager.
Thank you, Mayor. So this is a little bit of deja vu, a long time in the making, however you want to talk about development on former Fort Ord and the process. But before I get going, I just want to let everybody know who your development team who is here. So the development team for you all is myself, City Attorney Alex Lorca, and then we have David Zender. Sorry, on the spot, names fly out of my head. David Zender from EPS, who's been with the city for 20 years going on, trying to help us get this development going. He's our economic development expert. He's going to review all the finances for us. He knows everything about the development process. And then Aaron, where's Aaron? Aaron Harwain and Denise Duffy from Denise Duffy and Associates. Aaron is our environmental expert. There's probably nobody on the peninsula who knows environmental issues related to Fort Ord more than you, right, Aaron? Is that safe to say? Yes, it is safe to say. Yeah, she's being humble. She knows everything about former Fort Ord environmental issues. And Denise Duffy, of course, you all know Denise. Denise has been with the city for 35, 37 years. She's family. She's part of the city, and she's our zoning and land use expert, and helping us get everything done planning wise, but especially with regard to the development. So it's a solid team that you have working for you and making sure that this gets done properly and gets done in the best interest of the city. So a little history lesson. I know everybody knows, everybody's been paying attention, and former Fort Ord is a complicated, it's a complicated site. It used to be a base. Our land used to be part of a shooting range, used to be where they shot from. Some of it had exploded ordnance land on it. So there's a lot of issues with development on this property, and that's been part of why it's taken so long to get this done. Recession didn't help. There's a lot of history. Just so you know, personal history for myself, I moved here to the Monterey Peninsula in 1994. That's when the base closed. That's how long ago this happened, and we've been trying to get this done since 1994. In the late 90s and the early 2000s, I was on the board of directors for Habitat for Humanity. And I had a long tenure with Habitat for Humanity, starting in college, built houses all around the world. Thought I was going to come here and build houses. And we had this base, we're going to build houses. Nah, we didn't build houses. It's a complicated site, and it's a complicated process. It's a complicated political process. And we thought we were going to get affordable housing done. And the affordable housing that we thought we were going to get done in the 90s is just starting to happen now, 30 years later. So this is not new. This is not something that's just being forced on us. This has been in the works for 30 years. We've been talking about this. I personally have been fighting to get housing built on former Fort Ord for 30 years. It's pretty exciting to me that I might actually have a chance before I retire to get some housing built on former Fort Ord. So that's why I'm excited to talk to you all about this process. So what we're, for Delray Oaks, without getting into the weeds on the history, because you all are at least partially involved and understand the history, but putting aside what happened prior to 2018, there were attempts to get something done out there. But in 2018, we issued an RFP, a request for proposals. We got 3 proposals associated with that. And then with the city manager, Dino Pick, at that time, leaving to go serve his country with the DOD at the time and going on leave, that put some things on hold. And then we had a little thing called COVID, which put everybody in lockdown. That put everything on hold. And then I came in 2001. So that 3-year time between we issued the RFP to when I got here, not a lot happened with moving forward with actually getting development done with that RFP. So when I got here, we reached out again to the 3 applicants who had submitted under the RFP to try to gauge their interest in still moving forward, considering coming out of a pandemic and the changing environment. City Ventures had actually reached out to me. They were very direct that they were still interested and wanted to keep going. One of the other firms, I think, merged with City Ventures, so that meant 2 of them now were one, and the other one from San Diego were not interested. So we came forward with a proposal to move forward with the one remaining developer, City Venture, and we did an exclusive right to negotiate with them. That was a year and a half process for them to go through due diligence. For various reasons, we weren't successful. We weren't able to come to an agreement, a lot of which had to do with the current economy and with the problems with this site. And they had a lot of other speculative properties and opportunities that they wanted to pursue instead. So this just wasn't the right fit for them. So now here we are. So well, let me step back before that. So before we went through that process, a new thing came from the federal government or from the state government that we have to do the Surplus Land Act. We have to follow Surplus Land Act. So while not an official RFP like we did in 218, we had to go through the Surplus Land Act where we had to offer the property up as an option for low-income housing developers and park and open space developers to express an interest in doing a project on the parcel. So kind of like an RFP, we opened it back up for others to express interest. We got some interest, not real interest. It was more just wanting to come and talk to us. And some even said they just submitted because they wanted to come and talk to us to tell us what their ideas were, what they think we should do with the parcel. But they didn't want to do it. They just wanted to come talk to us. So we went through that process. We completed the Surplus Land Act process, which means now we, the city, can do whatever we want with that parcel, and we don't have to go through that process again, which is good because it was a long process. So then we did the ENA process with City Venture. So now here we are again. We had a developer. We thought it was going to be productive. We thought we were going to get there, and we haven't. Partially because this is a parcel with a lot of constraints, a lot of environmental constraints. Doesn't mean that it's not possible to develop out there. It just means that we have to find the right partner and somebody who has the wherewithal to get it done and to get it done in the way that's going to work for our community. So that's what I'm here tonight is to ask you all to settle on a process to give me and to give your team direction on how do you want to go about engaging with a developer. So we proposed 3 options. There's really a 4th option. I'll get into that later. But we proposed 3 options that we saw as viable paths forward to getting to an agreement with a developer. So this is just a discussion about what those options are. This is not a discussion about development. This is not a discussion about what we want the development to look like. Not talking about water, environmental constraints, none of that. It's just what process do you all see working that to find a partner and get into a partnership with the developer. And so there's no guarantee we're going to get to development after that, but I think we have some good options and good possibilities. Optimistic that we're going to at least get to a point of determining whether or not development out there is even feasible. And we have good options to do that. I don't want to go through the options right now. What I want to do first of all is have City Attorney Lorca, he'll give a legal summary of why we aren't legally required to issue another RFP. And you guys can do whatever you want. We can do another RFP, but legally we don't have to. But I'm going to let the attorney talk about that. And then David's going to summarize the options for you all and what, from his perspective as an expert in this process, what he sees as some of the cons and pros of each option.
Yeah, as the city manager said, there's no provision that requires the city to go out to RFP to choose a dance partner. The city can move right away. RFP, as a practical matter, has some advantages. It also has some costs, but there's no legal requirement to go out to an RFP. And for folks who remember when we did this last time, as was mentioned, we complied with the Surplus Land Act, and having done so already, there's not a need to redo that here.
Thank you, Alex. So now, David, you want to come up and yeah. So the options as we see them is we have so when I started talking with City Venture, there was another developer that came forward already working with the Craniacs, who are Monterey Peninsula Partners, who own the bookend parcels to our parcel. So the parcel along General Jim Moore, and then the parcel that's kind of called the Shark Fin with the city of Monterey's, which was entitled back in 2014, I believe, for RV campsite. And it's Vince Fletcher who's here. We keep talking about him as if he's not here. Vince Fletcher's the represents the developer who was reaching out to me. So we've kind of talked for 2 years now, not really, because while we were in negotiations with City Ventures, I could not talk with Vince. But since that ENA is done with, now we've been talking. In the interim, he's been working with the Craniacs and doing his due diligence on their parcels and our parcel to understand the ins and outs of getting development done out there. So I don't want to talk about Vince in the third person or as if he's not in the room. He's going to talk later. But anyway, so we have options, and David's going to summarize those for us.
Thanks, John. David Zender, Managing Principal, Economic and Planning Systems. A lot of familiar faces. Good to see you all again. I've been with the firm since 1992 when I came out of Cal, and I've been working for EPS either in our Berkeley office or our Sacramento office for the last 30 something years, and I'm going to stop counting at some point here. But we've been involved in advising on Fort Ord now for a long time. We started with the BRAC process, the base realignment process was the second round of that started in 1994. And EPS was extremely involved across the country in a myriad of base reuse projects. So East Coast, West Coast, all over the country. And Fort Ord was one of the primary projects. And so we had a very prominent role advising Fort Ord Reuse Authority, as well as several municipalities here on the peninsula. And we're still at it. Job isn't quite finished, and there's still very productive land that can be developed for housing. And we all know that housing is sorely needed in California to take care of our needs. So in order to sort of move forward, I think it's been realized that this property requires a certain skill set among the developer that is ultimately chosen that would implement the project. And the skill set is not simply one of being a good developer. It means that developer has to really be a good partner for the city. That's really the main distinguishing characteristic here. And to be a good partner with the city, there's a number of things that are really important here. One is to bring the financial resources that are necessary to complete the project in the first place, and to expend those financial resources in a way that it meets not just development concepts, but city needs and city desires. You know, you are basically completing the city with this project. Ultimately, your footprint will be established unless you go out and annex more land in the future or take over another city, which is probably unlikely given what I know about Delray Oaks. So, you know, we're going to be, establishing the permanent footprint of the city of Delray Oaks with this project. And therefore, you have to determine what all the ancillary services are, where are those located, retail, community, facilities, et cetera, infrastructure. It's all critically important. So having a really good skill set, working with communities is probably the most important criterion you can establish there. And then beyond that, just being really adept, working with varying market conditions in a situation where you've got to keep your costs under control, but also be mindful of staying on schedule and staying on budget. So this is a difficult skill set that we're describing here, but we feel that the property continues to receive interest among the industry participants that are more than capable of pulling this off. So we're getting excellent interest from some of the top players in the industry, and I think that really bodes well for the city. So we're going to need to have a high degree of coordination, and I think that's the bottom line. So at this point, we have basically three options. The first would be to leverage the experience and the kind of boots on the ground sort of efforts of of a participant, Vince Fletcher, who's been basically working with the Craniacs to help develop their concept, and has been involved in this project, and understands implicitly the land asset, but also the community. So I think that's certainly a very strong option, not to waste time to take advantage of the availability of an individual of this caliber with this experience. That would be definitely a strong option. Another option would be is a variant on that, which is to do exactly that, but also to invite in the other folks that have shown interest. So there are at least 2 other entities that have shown strong interest in the project, that have also skill sets that bode well and seem to be strong. And so the idea with this variant of the proposals would be to basically create a very streamlined framework that would mimic, if you will, a development and disposition agreement. So you'd know where the money was coming from, how the developer is reading the market, how well the developer works with communities, and all of those other criteria. And we basically organize a full day of discussions with each developer candidate. And they would come prepared for that event. And then we would basically go through those in a very structured manner, and then give our recommendation at that point. That recommendation could be for one of those specific developers, or we may think that maybe 2 or all 3 have something to contribute, and perhaps there's partnerships that could be explored. So that's sort of option number 2. Option number 3 would say, well, we've been at it for how long, John? 20 years, 30 years. So, what's a couple more, 3, 4 years? So if you want to take sort of a step back and think about the picture holistically, and you conduct a national search for developers, the property has the gravitas to do that. But I think so you could get more sort of market competition through that process, but you'd also be losing time, and it would be an expensive process of conducting developing the RFP, but also conducting the interviews and reviewing a myriad of proposals, and getting to a short list and doing more interviews and so forth. So it'd be a rather involved process, but also it's a viable option. So I think you have really, 3 solid options. One is the most direct kind of beeline to opening discussions with a knowledgeable individual. The second is sort of a takeoff on that in terms of opening discussions with more than one knowledgeable individual in a very carefully laid out framework. So it's very intentional in that regard. And then the third would be the full RFP process. So with that, I can answer any questions that you have.
Okay, thank you, David. I'll start with the council first. Councilmember Uy.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and I'm honored to be the first one who asked questions for tonight. So, but thank you first for the Fort Ord development team of DRO. John, thank you for really pointing them out, so at least I could see the faces of our staff, and I really appreciate all of your thoughts and analysis in putting up all of these options for us. And I know it's not easy, but of course it's gonna be harder for us which one. So I want everyone in the team to help me decide, because I have a few questions and a few clarifications on this, and then anyone from the team can respond if ever. So because my point here is we just want really I know pointed out all those good characteristics of a partner, and then but we just want to make sure that that our city is also protected, no, and also get all the things that we want as a community. So my first question would be from a legal risk standpoint, which option, the three options, provides the strongest protection uh, to the city against potential challenges to developers, to other like housing partners, or just community stakeholders?
I'm going to let Alex handle that one since that is his bailiwick.
Councilmember Uy, the risk would be presented once we were in an agreement with someone. At this point, it's just a process of how we select that person, and there's little risk in how we move forward. Once we're in an exclusive right to negotiate or development disposition agreement with a partner, then I think it's, the question about how qualified they are informs a lot of the legal risk. But for the purposes of tonight and just the process in which we're going to select, there's little to no risk in doing so legally. Does that answer the?
Yes. So I just want to make sure that which of all of those options won't give us or expose us to more legal risk, because it could be like any, and it could be not only through the selection process or the criteria, but what about like looking at us as a city, like maybe like they would think that we were playing favoritism or we're cherry picking and those kind of things. So I just want to know that.
Because the city has full discretion to decide the process in which it wants to employ to select someone, there's little legal risk in between the three options. There's very little difference between the three options legally as far as risk is concerned.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so and also it was mentioned as well earlier about the Surplus Land Act and also the CEQA for sure. And of course, we're all gonna be going through this kind of process. And my next question would be, can we clarify how this law would apply under each option? So and whether any of these option would expose the city again to further litigation.
Sure.
Yes.
Sure. And so Mr. Fletcher did provide us with a legal opinion that indicated that in their opinion, the Surplus Land Act has been met, the spirit of the act has been met, and that the city is free to move forward with any of these three processes. And Alex can articulate that further.
That's correct. As I mentioned, the city went through that process not that long ago, and I'm not aware of any requirement that it go through that process again.
We also had an outside attorney take a look at that with Goldfarb and Littman, and she concurred.
Okay, so what about transparency and competition? I know probably you mentioned earlier about one of those options. So how does each option ensure a transparent and competitive process so the city can demonstrate fairness and avoid perceptions of pre-selection or favoritism?
Sure. I'll just say that I think that the city has gone through a number of rounds on this, and all of those rounds were totally open to all comers in terms of folks who may want to develop here. And so at this point, I think through those experiences, we've learned a lot. And we now know really what the skill set is. And it's a very detailed and particular skill set that we think is going to be effective. And that involves kind of understanding how contaminants can affect marketability of land and how you protect risk, protect yourself against risk. And so the developers that are familiar with Fort Ord have many of these skills because they've studied it for decades. And so it's sort of a specialized skill set that I think we are looking for, in addition to the community outreach and being connected, and understanding what people are looking for. Understanding how to deal with these more technical discussions of subsurface issues is paramount. And so I think there's a good rationale, a logical rationale for thinking of connecting with people who understand those issues through their own development analysis on the very land that we're analyzing here. So, you know, I think the specialized skill set with the experience of developing on Fort Ord can be a tangible difference. And it's not that people could still come from the outside and they can get on the steep learning curve and they can, you know, it's attainable knowledge, but they will be behind a little bit and it will take longer. So I think that's the trade-off. It's not that, you know, one is better than the other, but if you're interested in moving forward a little bit more expeditiously, and there may be some advantages to that in terms of the current investment cycle that we're in, where investors are still in the market and we're still spending as consumers. We don't know how long that's going to continue, to be honest. So, you know, that's a factor. And so taking all these things into consideration, these options are all viable. And it's really a judgment in terms of what you're most comfortable with.
And David, just out of curiosity, I know we see developments in the city of Marina, and are those on the Fort Ord area for place?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yep.
So there are already developers there.
Right.
Okay. I think, Mr. Mayor, that's all from me. Yeah, at this moment. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Halleck.
Thank you, Mayor. I just have a couple simple questions that I think are pertinent to the discussion tonight relative to the action taken by council at this juncture. We mentioned the RFP process, as well as the Surplus Land Act that we've now established is no longer necessary. That's understood. That RFP process, I'm wondering how wide a net did the city cast at that time? Because you mentioned in option 3, as you dubbed it, that it would be at a national level. Would this be a comparative outreach, greater, or very similar? And you can answer yourself or defer to any member of your team or perhaps the city manager.
Do you want to take that one? Or I'll just say that that was Dino
Just
pick.
trying to establish the benefits
Yeah.
of option number 3 and how
Right.
they might differ from
Yeah.
a route that the city has already taken.
And maybe John, you may know a little more about Dino's distribution methodology. I'm not
I don't
100%
directly
clear.
care on Mike, but yeah, I know it went out to the greater development community in California. I don't know if it went out nationally.
So statewide more so.
Right.
And although the Surplus Land Act is a moot point at this point, about how wide was the outreach there?
The Surplus Land Act went out to everybody that were required to send it out. There's a state clearinghouse. And
Also
everybody
state,
has.
also state level.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And yeah. So yeah, it's up to you all how you want to do this process. We can do an RFP, it goes out statewide, national. But most of the national developers, which Mr. Fletcher is part of, you know, they already have the national reach statewide and around the country because they're big home developers.
Are we going to hear more from Mr.
Well,
Fletcher?
he's
Looks like he's got an
he's
impressive
part of the, yeah,
presentation
I
here.
mean,
so.
that's up to the mayor, but he's part of the public and has 3 minutes like everyone else. This is not a formal
right.
process to pick a developer, so this is a process.
Right. All right. Great. Thank you for all the information.
Sure.
Option 2, as it's dubbed, I read to more so that it was simply to reach out for interested parties, those that had expressed interest before, but you're now kind of framing it as sort of a way to circumvent an exclusive right to negotiate by entertaining both interested parties, well, all interested parties, if I understand that correctly, or maybe not.
No, this would be before we enter into the ENA.
Of
So
course.
this would be a pre-ENA round of discussions, kind of open field discussions to sit in a room and have some structure, but also allow for a free-flowing discussion. So you can
Right.
determine if there's a good fit, if this is a good partner. And then once you sort of made that determination, who's the best partner, then you go into an exclusive with that person.
Understood.
Which would happen here at the city council level with community input and everything. We wouldn't enter into an ERN, we'd bring it back to the council for
Right.
consideration.
Yes,
Correct.
of course.
Correct.
Recognizing the process and hence the transparency as
Yeah.
we always have.
Yeah.
But that more so gives us an opportunity to see all of our options,
Mhm.
including very interested parties. So
Yes,
okay.
indeed.
I think that's all I have. Thank you,
Okay.
Mr. Zender.
You're welcome.
All right. Councilmember Shirley.
Thank you, David, for being here.
Sure.
I think the last time I saw you, we were on Zoom, so nice to see you
Good
in
to be here in
person. I'm curious about the cost differences
Mhm.
between option 2 and option 3.
Sure.
Can you maybe ballpark that?
I will say I think option 3 probably would run you into a several month process. And so when you think about the entities that you need legal representation, you'd need engineering, you'd need biological, of course, other things like economics, and then and so and possibly others, geotechnical. There could be some narrow, hydrology. So there's a whole sort of process that each of these options comes with, and number 3 would be by far the most involved in terms of needing to have that representation on your staff so that you could review these proposals and accurately analyze kind of which rise to the top. And then you would go through, so say you've got 10 or 12 proposals under a successful process, then you would need to basically take that down to, say, 3 viable final proposals. And at that point, you would probably bring in the developer team to make a presentation. And there's all kinds of variations on this theme in terms of how all this goes. But that would be, you'd basically, at that point, hear those presentations, have a chance to ask questions, and then go with a vote for the selected developer, if that's how you did it. Or you could have a committee that includes a couple of city council people on it, and that could be the voting body. But it can work a lot of different ways. Ultimately, of course, everything has to be approved by the city council. But I would say it could easily be, I'm just going to say 6 digits more expensive than option 2.
Okay. In terms of our current RFP, how much editing do you feel like needs to be done on that document in order to make it viable for this day and age? And I'm wondering too if we would be able to make it so that we could let people know we are looking for a developer with a special skill set for this.
Yeah. There's again, all this is subject to discussion and decisions. You can go with a more elaborate RFP that's really detailed and has technical resources bundled in an appendix so that everybody has the same information to work with. That takes effort, right? Or you could go with sort of the prior city manager's approach, which was very light touch and minimalistic, and it was really just a couple of pages of content. And that's the complete other end of the spectrum.
Yeah.
And so as a developer that receives that information, you have to make a decision as to how real this is, and if it's something that you want to wade into. If you don't have enough information, sometimes that can be a disadvantage. So it's trying to find that right kind of amount of detail without going overboard. So those are some of the things you have to think about.
Okay. And then what is your experience with public input on RFPs, be it either council input or public input. I'm just wondering what sort of, because I know that last RFP that Dino Pick put out, the council didn't even approve. He just put it out.
Mhm.
So I'm wondering what the process of
Sure.
an RFP would be and how much public input there would be. in
Yeah,
that.
so I think that is ultimately up to this body in terms of, how many touches do you want? And is it something that you want to actively participate in, or another approach would be to come together as a group in terms of what's most important to you, in terms of amenities or things to avoid or whatever it is, and then make those really clear, and then have staff go away and do the process and report back, and then you still maintain some control that way.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. In terms of option 2, we clearly have a developer who's very interested,
Mhm.
and we have another developer, I think, who is interested, maybe not as much,
Mhm.
and then maybe one who is even less so interested. And so if you go with option 2, I'm just wondering, how do you equally weigh all of them if their interests are not the same?
I think that shows up in the conversation. So we certainly wouldn't want to select a partner that was anything less than 100% enthusiastic about getting involved.
Yeah.
So that would be, a fatal flaw if anything less than that were obvious.
Okay, so
Yeah.
so then if we go through that process with option 2 and we see that, okay, there isn't anyone that's 100% in,
Mhm.
then we're essentially back at the RFP process.
Yeah, could be.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Okay.
It's fungible,
Yeah.
there's options and different ways this can go. So
Yeah.
you can tailor these according to your preference.
Yeah. Okay.
Mhm.
All right. That's it for me now. Thank you.
All right. Vice Mayor Berger.
Thank you, Mayor. Mr. Zender, thank you. And thank you for joining the team
You're welcome.
with this. I understand that your firm is an excellent partner and has done a lot with us. So thank you, if anybody
Great,
didn't know
thank
that. Would all three options, and I know this is kind of an answer, but would all three options allow the city to have a say in the general makeup of the development, how it would look, infrastructure, parks, retail, and community resources? That's the first question.
Yes.
All three?
Yeah.
Okay. Any one more so than the other?
I think from a process standpoint, I think we can articulate those community needs if there is a process put into play here that allows us to learn what we need to know. We can make sure that those preferences are fully integrated in any of the discussions, regardless of the option.
Yeah, most of that discussion happens once we get through the ERN process, the NA process, and we get to a development agreement. That's when those kinds of discussions happen and we formulate what the project's going to look like. And that's the same process for all three of these options.
Great, thank you. Thank you for your answers. How do you phrase this one? Which of the three processes would scare off developers, or which is the friendliest for developers?
That's a toughie, it sort of depends on the developer. And I think that if the city, my personal view on this is if the city is true to, itself and really articulates what it wants, I think the development community would respect the notion of drawing from candidates that are already proven in that particular context, like the context we're in. I think that would be something that would be 100% understood by the development community, because Fort Ord is just not generic land. It's not, especially with the issues we have here. So I think there's an inherent sort of appreciation for the complexity of getting involved in a higher risk project. You have to be a real expert to pull it off. And so I think that going with a more streamlined approach would not be seen as a negative on the city at all. I think if you're looking to give everybody, a fair shot, sure, the RFP might be arguably a way to go, but I think that developers, and we have developer clients as much as we do city clients. We're about half and half. So we do these projects from both sides. And I can tell you there is some frustration in the development community about how time consuming the RFP process can be and how much time it takes. And so if you're a developer, you have choices in terms of what you do. You can work on a project over here, you can work on a project over there. You need to make these decisions based on, expectation of reward. And so if the process seems like it's going to take too long, or it's too complicated to do the homework, to provide an articulate application, then I think you're going to find you won't get the response you're looking for. It could be a smaller than optimal, number of adequate proposals.
So without exactly
So I
putting
think
words,
that would be the risk and I've seen that in other markets where the proposal ask was too much for the development community, and then the response was tepid as a result. So that can happen. So you've got to strike the right balance there. You don't want to scare people away. But so those are some of my thoughts. There's no absolute.
okay, from what I'm interpreting, that's okay. The first two options would probably be the most appealing to not being as complicated or drawn out then?
Absolutely.
Okay.
That's my
Okay,
recommendation.
I appreciate that. Thank you
Yeah.
very much.
Mhm.
Thank you. That's good, thank you.
Okay,
Thanks.
city manager.
Yeah, thank you. Before we go back to public comment and get more information, I just want to share a couple things and I don't know, maybe add some context. So, we're not recommending a process here. We're just looking for direction to get this going forward. As your city manager, my job is to work on behalf of you all for your city and do what's in the best interest of your city. And myself and the staff and the team puts together recommendations for the council to consider and give us direction on where do you want to go and what's best interest for your city. But a big part of my job is managing your budget and managing your finances and trying to keep your city solvent and sustainable for the future. And for those of you who show up and listen to my budget sermon every year, the city is tenuous. The city's financial situation is tenuous. Our revenue streams are very minimal, and they're constantly at risk of downturns in the economy, which means that our ability to provide services to you all are always at risk due to downturns in the economy. So if you want your city to be sustainable financially for the future, this is your single best opportunity, is to do development out there and to do it thoughtfully and do it well with a partner who's going to work with us on financial sustainability and developing something that, yeah, we want to do our part to provide housing and to help with the housing crisis, but we have to have something that's financially sustainable, and not just for what's out there, but for what currently exists and broadening those revenue streams. It doesn't mean that your city's not going to exist. Doesn't mean that it just means that the services that you all are currently receiving and that you've come to expect from your city government without new revenue streams are going to change in the future. The current level of service cannot be maintained going into the future with the revenue streams that we currently have. Our costs are always going to outpace revenues in our current reality. So that's my budget pitch to all of you, those of you who show up here every year. So that's my perspective, and that's what I'm here to do for you all, is to help improve your city and improve your services and to fight for your city and keep it going, because it's a beautiful city and we provide awesome services. You have incredible staff who provide great services, and you want to keep them, and you want to keep the services that you all have been accustomed to. So that's what that's the end game here. That's what I'm trying to get you all to. So like I said, we don't have a recommendation. For those of you who are parents out there, you're all probably familiar with the pick your own adventure books that you read to your kids, and they get to tell you which journey they want to go on that day, and that dictates what you're going to read and what dragons they're going to fight and where they're going to end up at the end of the day. That's what this is for you all. This is a pick your own adventure. And whatever that adventure is, I'm going to read that book to you, and we're going to get to the end of that book, and it's going to be fun. I mean, I'm going to be honest, as a dad, there were frequently times where I wish that they picked the short adventure with the fewest number of pages because I wanted to get through it. But, you know, it's been out there. It's been said that I have a desired outcome tonight. I do not have a desired outcome tonight. I had a recommendation for each option, as did David, with the pros and cons, and given certain contexts, which I thought were the best options for the city. But this is not a simple thing that these folks do up here. It's complicated. And so each one of the options, there is no right option and there is no wrong option. There's just the option that you all are most comfortable with. And so we're just looking for direction, and then whatever you all pick, then this is the team that's going to get it done, and we're going to get it done to the best of our ability. So with that, let's go to the public.
Yeah, I know a lot of you are here to make public comments, and I want to get to that. But first, I would just like to say I get a sense amongst my fellow council members that there's not a resistance to development. It's just, how are we going to get out of the gate and start the process once again? And I want to tell the public that throughout this entire process, you will be involved with it. So let me break it down, kind of get a focus back on what we're trying to do here. We're trying to get out of the gate and determine a way that we can select a developer that maybe we might want to enter into an exclusive right to negotiate with, which you will all be part of that process. Let me use City Ventures as an example. We entered into an exclusive right to negotiate with them through the council process and voted to do that. Unfortunately, it didn't work for them. They didn't find that it could be viable for them. It wouldn't pencil out. But if we did, we would go to the next step of developing a development agreement, which then you get into a real robust public engagement where we're essentially saying, hey, we want this. And then it's up to the developer to either deliver that to us or tell us why they can't do it, why it doesn't become viable for them. So we're just in that first step. What we're talking about today is that first step before we even get close to an exclusive right to negotiate, which City Ventures is a good example of that, and then the follow-on step. So I just wanted to kind of bring that back to you before we keep going here. So with that, thank you all for hanging in there, and I will open up public comment.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council. My name is Cheryl Parker, and I'm speaking for myself and my husband, Jed. As we are local Delray Oak residents and licensed professional civil engineers with extensive public and private sector experience, we routinely manage capital projects and request for proposals for the inception of construction of public assets. We strongly urge the council to select option 3 for the future parcels of the development of the future parcels. Generally, in public engineering, sole source contracting and limiting competition, while expediency is appealing, fast-tracking a project that could double the footprint sets a dangerous precedent. Early interest simply does not equal the best capability or the vision of our city. Option 3 is the gold standard for the public asset development. Open competition forces developers to compete, which drives down costs, maximizes financial return, and generates the highest caliber of creative ideas. Development of the parcels is too vital to rely on anything than a less than fully transparent and highly competitive process. Option 3 protects the city, respects the taxpayers, and ensures the best possible outcome. Delray Oaks serves as a serene green space nestled between two bustling urban centers of Seaside and Monterey. I urge the council to deliberately preserve our unique identity during these final major developments of our city. How the council chooses to develop the Fort Ord parcels and the Delray Oaks Garden parcel will dictate how our city is experienced for generations to come.
Thank
Thank
you.
Hi, my name is Patrice Vecchione. I've been living in Delray Oaks for about 20 years, a long time. Part of what drew me here, well, most of what drew me here is sitting over there, but the other part of what drew me here is that this is a small city. And what you're talking about here in any one of those three options is doubling the size of the city. John, you say you want to increase, to preserve services, but you're talking about doubling the size of the city. So that's contradictory to me because we right now have this many people and now you're talking about doubling and having to provide those services for that many more people. I vote for, and I don't get a vote obviously, for option 4. Let's keep this place the small community that we are. We don't need to get bigger. Our job is not to provide for the rest of the peninsula. Our job is to provide for the community and support what's here. Let's put a public pool in over at the Garden Center. How about a public library? How about a cafe? These are other ways to serve the people who are here and the future people who will be here. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council. Thank you for the opportunity to be able to speak before you today. I am here in strong support of option 3 because it represents the most reasonable, forward-thinking, and community-centered choice before us tonight. A fresh RFP, a fresh look by developers, statewide or even international or national. This decision is not just about today, but it is of the long-term stability and integrity of our city. Option 3 protects the community's long-term interests. It prioritizes sustainability over short-term convenience. It ensures responsible development and safeguards taxpayer investments. It reduces risk by selecting a path that has greater certainty of completion and compliance, proven track record, and also capacity record. We have seen projects stall when developers lacked experience navigating complex regulations like the Surplus Lands Act. Option 3 should align with a team that understands our local landscape and regulatory process. Choosing experience reduces delays, litigation, risk, and unfinished projects. Delray Oaks has seen enough of those undeliverable projects. Financial responsibility, option 3 provides the strongest current financial framework and expectations. It would minimize exposure to cost overruns and protect city resources. It would demonstrate fiscal stewardship and something our residents expect and deserve. Community trust and accountability. Public trust matters. Option 3 reflects consistency, accountability, and a partner who understands our community values. When we choose reliability, we send a message that this council values follow through and transparency. Option 3 provides the clearest path to implementation, but we can't rush perfection. Our community has waited, and we can be patient. Tonight is an opportunity to begin the process and move forward decisively and strategically. In my closing statement, this is about stability. It's about trust. This is about delivering results for Delray Oaks. And I respectfully urge the council to choose option 3 as the path that best protects our residents and yet still advances our city future. Thank you for this time.
Thank you.
Good evening. I'm Cecilia Carrasco from the Oaks, and I would like to speak tonight regarding option 3. I think also as a civil servant myself, our fiduciary duty for transparency, cheaper isn't always better. fast isn't always better. So taking our time, there could be other situations where there's been decommissioned um, bases across the nation where there's proven developers who could now have the opportunity to look at our area. I think it provides us with more time. We don't have to rush. And I think it's an important way to be responsible and take time. Thank you.
Thank you.
Dennis Allian, excuse me. All those are very good points, but I don't think you're going to, by choosing either option 1 or option 2, I don't think you're going to, you don't necessarily, and after reading these things over, I don't think you're going to jeopardize the input from people. As the mayor has stated, this would be a process. The real concern here, and people should have this concern, is that we've been trying to do something with that land for a long time. We've had competitors come in. We've had a failed one with Infantino. I want to go back to what our city manager said. You have to understand, you have to go back and take a look back where we were back in 2000 when we didn't have enough money. We had Karen and other people just trying to hold back the people that we owed money to. We had people, it was embarrassing on the part of the city, and it jeopardizes our future. We cannot ignore the fact that we have people who are interested in doing something constructive with that property out there. I want you to take a look around and see what's happening on Seaside and Marina. I think it's terrible in a way, but at the same time, those cities are now getting the revenues that they need to sustain themselves. We're not going to have those revenues come in the future. You can't count on Safeway providing us enough tax revenue. You can't count, you'd have to have every single house in our community would have to have an ADU and provide some sort of transient occupancy tax. I don't want to have that. I don't think you want that either. So we've got to take a look at the practical side of this thing. I think the city council has to take a practical look at it. You can preserve the importance of feedback from citizens. You can do that. But you've got to take an opportunity and say, which of these is the most realistic? Remember, we have gone out for RFPs before. They have failed miserably. We haven't gotten the interest that we need. We have somebody that's interested. Let's work with those people. I think you're going to miss an opportunity if you go back out with number 3. It'll be years and years. And I know not everybody has been here as long as I have. We need that revenue. We need it, or you won't have your own city. You'll be, and somebody said preserving Delray Oaks is a little tiny city. That's wonderful. Even if we double the size of our city, we're still pretty small. And we can still have a good feel that this is our little community. And my time is up.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Council, Mayor, Gary Krieger, 3 Quindell. Just listening to it's a great discussion. Option number 1, I like the idea of the local people. That sounds great. Like competition kind of bothers me. Sort of along the same lines with option 2. It's a little more competition, but you know, as we know from our 25 plus years in military, you know, you kind of get dependent and you kind of lose that competitive edge, and that sometimes doesn't work out as well. You know, you go, oh, they got lots of experience, yeah, but things, you know, sometimes bringing in new people is not a bad idea to kind of get a better outcome. And so that's sort of the thing I would be, you know, watching out for with option 1 and 2 is that lack of competition and new ideas necessarily. I do like the idea of being able to maybe revisit what we want to do with the city as a, division. And maybe this time include the residents. We talked about the fact that the last RFP went out without any input. They just sort of showed up, and it would have been nice to have some discussion. But prior to that, it's dated. I mean, it's not super old, but things have changed. I mean, a lot of things have changed on the ground. Much more emphasis on affordable housing. You look in the RFP, it's got a height limit of 30 feet. That's not going to help build affordable housing. Nobody wants an embassy suites out there, but 30 feet, what's that? Maybe 3 stories? Maybe. I don't build it. I'm thinking it's 2, at 3 at the most. Affordable housing, and that's how you get affordable housing. You go up. It doesn't mean we do it everywhere out there, but it can be thoughtfully, if it's designed out, incorporated. But that's a limit. Why is that there? So I would encourage us to think about the RFP, the chance to maybe revisit some of this. And if that is not feasible, then at least I think, as Councilman Shirley was asking, can we go back at least and modify the RFP, at least get some more input, maybe update it, because it's already getting close to 10 years old and things on the ground have changed. So even if we don't do a whole new one, we certainly ought to have the opportunity to go in there and at least revisit it and make sure it's still valid, make sure it still reflects what the city wants. I don't think anybody wants Delray Oaks Highlands out there. And so, we can avoid that, right? It needs to be holistic, as David was saying, right? This is permanent. Whatever we decide to do out there, and we do need to do something, it's permanent. We don't get a second bite at the apple. So we want to really be mindful, and there's a lot of good corporate knowledge in the city here. Let's take advantage of it and get more people involved sooner than later. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Celine Panay, Delray Oak resident, and I have more questions than comments, I guess, because I'm trying to figure out the different alternatives that were presented. And with my experience with RFPs, there are a lot of different kinds. So one of my question is, how extensive would it need to be if we go down that route? My second question is about option 2. Which sounds in a way fairly inclusive as well, but I'm not sure how inclusive it is. And so I'm not, these are 2 questions I would have that I would want us to consider as we look at the options.
All right, thank you.
Hello, Birdsong. Thank you. Things have changed in 10 years. You take a cell phone, 10-year-old cell phone. It was basically a cell phone. It's a computer now with phone capability. So haven't things changed with developers, with contractors? Haven't they moved forward? Or are they still using pickaxes? Or do they have digging equipment? I think it should go out again. And anybody that's interested and wants it and is hungry will bid on it. If I was a contractor, I'm not going to bid on something I don't want and waste my resources and time. Option 3, you'd come out and this gentleman can put his bid in with the others, or his proposal, whatever we call it. So we take another year maybe. We put a timeline on it and say this is the criteria, and you have to have your proposal in by this date. That's not unusual, it's normal. So I agree with most of the other people, option 3.
Thank you.
I appreciate your time. So my name is Vince Fletcher. I'm with IL Housing Solutions. That is a partnership with Integral Communities and Lennar Homes. Lennar Homes is the largest builder in California. They're the second largest builder in the nation, and they're number one in terms of total revenue every year. So we have the Craniac property under contract. It is the 23 acres that you see here at the end that fronts on General Jim Moore, and the 53 acres is on the eastern boundary of the city, and in between is the city's 229 acres in the middle. So it is a complex site, and it's got a number of issues. Some of the issues involved are the tiger salamander is in the mitigation circumference of the properties. It does have buried munitions, which need to be sonar'd and removed. We have met with the military, and they've got the experts to show us how to find the munitions that haven't been exploded yet and get those removed properly. It cannot be done until after you get the mitigation for the tiger salamander taken care of. The one thing we do plan to do is we plan to reroute South Boundary Road to where you've got some decent sight distance here and create a roundabout. The 23 acres, I think, is your best opportunity for revenue producing income properties. We do want to work with the community and get as much input on the type of generating uses that we can find. I think it's the best site if you want to do, for example, a hotel site, or if you want to do retail on both sides of General Jim Moore on the 23 acres. I think that would work best here on this property. We do understand that some of the challenges involved include prevailing wage, and we're willing to do that. We are willing to do the 20% affordable housing on site. We have met with Aaron and Denise Duffy and recognized the challenges involved with the tiger salamander. We met with the state Fish and Game and the Fed Fish and Game Wildlife, excuse me. And we've talked about mitigation property that would be acceptable to them. And they want to work together. And in summation, we would like to receive the exclusive right to negotiate and combine it all with one secret document and do it at one time. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Mike Hayworth, 4 Carlton Drive. I think that everybody in Delray Oaks, if they had no choice, would not want to develop that property. But we're in a position where we have to. I remember back 20 years ago, I walked door to door to get signatures for an assessment so we could keep a police department. It sounds like we're going to be in danger of that same sort of situation if we wait too long. So I would just encourage you all to make a mindful decision to protect us all, but to be as expeditious as you can safely to protect our city. Thank you.
Thank you.
I just had one question. Oh, Susan Blush, Delray Oaks, Baxter. For the gentleman that was doing the presentation, I don't know if I heard this wrong because I feel like I've been sitting on my brain 2 hours, but and I'm a little under the weather. But did you say that option 3 could possibly be several $100,000 more than the 2 options? Did I hear that right?
No, I said potentially 6-digit difference.
Six.
6 digits,
I was
maybe
thinking zero, like 6 zeros. No?
100,000, 6 digits at the lowest.
Okay, at the
So,
lowest. All right.
I mean, that is just very, that's, that you have some control over.
Okay.
So you can make the RFP involved or more. So they try to keep costs down for the more sort of circumvented process.
Okay, so would keeping the cost down on, that's option 3, right? So would keeping the cost down on option 3 sort of level it out to be the same or similar to the 2 other options you gave? No, okay, that's all I wanted to, I just wasn't clear. So all of them basically are the same.
And actually, there, I'll just, is it, community center guides?
Yeah, it's just public. Yeah, it's just public comment at this point. So Susan, if you could just continue.
Yeah, I just wanted clarification if possible regarding the presentation because I wasn't sure if the third option was significantly more expensive than the other 2.
Okay, thank you for that.
Hi, my name is Michael Stark. I've lived here for 35 years. I'm concerned about added traffic. Has anybody thought about that? Also, as you go about this, I assume you know how much new revenue is coming in. Are you going to be making decisions based on total revenue or changing the environment for the residents here? And I would certainly go with option 3. I've been in construction my whole life, and I do know that if there's questions among the board of what are the goals, the developers are really not going to know what are we bidding on and all that kind of stuff. So that's my comment.
Thank you. Okay, any other public comment? All right. Public comments closed. I'll bring it back to the council. First, I'll go to the city manager if there was anything that you wanted to add.
No, although Patrice did bring up a good point, there is always a 4th option, and that is not to pursue development. You all know that, but that's not, point that out. That's the 4th.
Okay. So I'll start with Councilmember Uy. If you have any other comments, questions.
Mr. Mayor, maybe one last question.
Sure.
So, it could be answered by anyone who was in the development team. So, which I know that all of the options we have a say. You know, we have a say. Like the community has a say. But which of the 3 options best position the city to negotiate with with the community needs like that we want, like for example like affordability levels or what infrastructure elements that we want and other things. So which of those options would give us the best position to do that?
John, do you want to take that one?
So all those are all topics that'll be brought up through a development agreement process and entitlement process. And so that's when we'll weigh in and the community will have input on what the community wants to see out there. So all 3 of the options get us to that. So this is just how do we get to who's going to be our partner, who's going to work on getting something done out there. And then when we start to get through the development process, that's when we have input on what is the development going to look like.
Thank you, John, for that question. And one good input that I've heard from the public is that if I were in the shoes of the developer and if I'm interested to bid on something, but if we don't have an RFP at this time, how would they know? Like, because Michael Stark pointed out that, of course, if you're a developer, you wanted to know what you are bidding on before you would even enter any conversation or conversation into the city or to do any business. So how does this work really? Like can we clarify this?
Sure.
Thank you, Mr.
John,
Mayor.
that's,
Yes.
that definitely.
Sure, so this is what developers do. They develop and they develop land, and so they understand what can and cannot be accomplished on any piece of land. So I guess maybe I don't totally understand your question. Uh, if we want to develop an RFP where we dictate this is what we want this number of houses to be built here, we want apartments to be built here, we want a park to be built here, a hotel to be built here, and then there's a better process for that. There's a process where we maintain ownership, we the city maintain ownership of the parcel, and then we kind of become the developers in that, and then we go out and look for individual partners. So for affordable housing, we would say in this corner of the parcel, we want affordable housing to be constructed here, we want apartments, then we would go out and look for an affordable housing partner to do that. And we would, probably go through the process to develop something like a specific plan where we would lay out with community input on what do we want this to look like, or a master plan or something like that. And then we would go out and seek individual partners, developers, to do different components of that. The problem with this parcel and doing that with this parcel is that this is a very complicated parcel. Doesn't have utilities. There's no water, there's no electricity, there's none of that. There's no sewer out there. The road needs to be improved and needs to be widened. So parceling it out like that, as a city, we don't have those kinds of resources to bring to bear to get. We can't do that. We can't bring utilities out there. It's going to be millions and millions of dollars to do that, and we don't have those kinds of resources. And so by parceling it out, finding a developer, the costs become too cost prohibitive for them to do small little one-off projects, and also then the infrastructure needs that need to go out there, and coming up with the financing that we need to do in order to establish a community finance district and an enhanced infrastructure financing district and things like that, which would help finance all of that. So that's why looking for a master planner who can holistically look at the entire parcel, and then they'll go out and seek partners for other options, because Vince's company is a housing provider. They're probably not going to work with us on developing the hotel. They'll work with us on planning out where the hotel is going to go, and then they will go out and find a hotel developer who will then work on actually constructing and building the hotel. So those are options. They're just not good options for us as a small city with a complicated parcel. But we could do an RFP like that. But if we do an RFP where we have a lot of community input and the community wants to designate this is how we want our development to look, we're really going to shrink the pool of potential developers who are going to want to get involved with that, because there's a lot of risk for them. And they know better than we do what pencils out and what doesn't pencil out, because at the end of the day, it is a business that they're in. And so part of the partnership is it has to work for them, has to work for us. And so it's a give and take.
Yes. I could see the give and take in there. I was just like thinking of, if I were the developer, how would I enter into a business where I don't know what I'm gonna be bidding on? So that's my only take. I know I'm gonna be building homes, but what about if in the negotiation the community said that we want very gracious like request, and of course I said, oh, I didn't sign up for that. So and then would that falter like the negotiation?
I think it's important to understand that options 1 and 2 are just conversations with known individuals. And these are people we know to be proven experts that are capable of doing the project and have the financial resources to do it. So these are just conversations that we enter into to see if there's something there. Okay, so these folks are self-selecting in a sense, in that they've been tracking development on Fort Ord, and they've come to the city because they know that this is one of the last viable, remaining Fort Ord parcels, major ones. And so they are fully informed and have selected themselves to come forward, make contact with the city, and have requested the ability to have a discussion, basically. If those discussions go well, then we come back and tell you about it, and we have a conversation about whether it's in our best interest collectively to go into the ENA or not. The answer may be no, we're not comfortable. So you could actually go through option one and decide, well, that didn't really work out. And you could move to sort of option two. And in fact, then you're in option two at that stage, because you're talking with multiple self-selected experts that have the proven demonstrated capability to pull the project off. Okay. If those conversations were still not satisfactory, then you always have the option of going to the RFP. So one approach would be to enter into these initial discussions, see what you have. And then if those are not, what you're looking for, then you can move on and prepare an RFP at either less detailed or more detailed. And that's a judgment, that's another discussion at that point. So that's one way. These are somewhat malleable options. But the way it would make sense mostly is if you're going to consider option one and or option two, those could come first. And then you move to option three if you're not happy. So there's lots of different ways to approach it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, thank you. Okay, thank you, Mr. Mayor.
You're welcome. Councilmember Howlett.
Thank you, Mayor Donaldson. Before I speak my whole piece, just one question I might have asked earlier. What is the duration of an exclusive right to negotiate? Is that are there variables there? Is that time frame reached upon agreement between both parties? The last one we were within took quite a bit longer, but this is because we had fresh eyes on this particular piece of land, and they were perhaps unfamiliar with, and research and studies might have drawn out that process. But what is the typical time, or do you see what I'm getting at, before we would be able to sever that agreement and move on if we found it not agreeable?
Yeah, it's all in how we craft it and how we agree with whatever
Right.
developer that we're working with. Yeah. So with City Ventures, we had 6 months, and with 2 3-month options to extend. While we thought we were making progress, we agreed to extend, and it just didn't work out. But it's really down to whatever you all want. I mean, we can do a 6-week ERN, but we're never going to get to an agreement that fast. But yes, 6 months, generally speaking, is the average, right, David? Yeah, 6 months
okay.
with options. Yeah.
That's a realistic time frame.
That's a relatively short time, and as a standard, half a year, 6 months is very typical. Okay, great. Thank you very much for your response to Councilmember Ui's last question, because it really surmises the direction that I'm thinking and going in. And I hope everyone heard Mr. Zender, because he explained it much more eloquently than I'm about to. But I think that the RFP, the request for proposal process, has been approached. The city has already gone that route in the past. I think there are a lot of uncertainties and question marks surrounding that. There may be some benefits. I've heard of the competitiveness and whatnot, but in an uncertain financial horizon for all of us, there are a lot of maybes there, a lot of uncertainties. I like the option 2 as well, but I'll just cut to the chase in that. Thank you very much for your presentation, Mr. Fletcher. I think that Mr. Fletcher's presence here representing Integral Lennar is, I think that speaks volumes in itself and shows a high level of interest. very tenacious and earnest effort in the property. My understanding is that interest has been expressed for some time, even before we entered into the exclusive right to negotiate with the previous developer. And so, you know, the council as well as the public is privy to a letter that was received. And I'm just going to refer to it and paraphrase a little bit as I go through this. And, you know, there's just a lot of emphasis on many benefits that I find myself and that I've heard from Mr. Zender. And in that there's already just a strong familiarity with this parcel of land and what's involved. This was one of the hindrances with our previous potential developers, that they encountered a lot of unknowns, a lot of hurdles that translated to costs and other considerations that ultimately caused them to sever that agreement. So that familiarity is just invaluable in my opinion. The fact that that this company, IL Housing Solutions, who by your testimonial, very impressive as being number one in the state and just a very, very reputable company is impressive in itself. But also, yes, already under contract with adjacent properties and citing, you know, so many efficiencies and benefits such as accessibility to the property overall, traffic circulation components, and just a very integral, holistic approach to the entire property, as well as combining efforts concerning environmental issues, species mitigation, and so on and so forth. And the fact that you're already working, that company is already working with, again, a very reputable planning consultant who's done extensive work on this land inventory as is, and will continue to do so. And they've worked with the city. We've relied on their services for a long time. And so there's certain levels of confidence in that. So my opinion is very similar to what Mr. Zender kind of laid out in his last comment. I've heard comments such as, "What's the hurry?" And I agree, this process shouldn't be approached too hastily, but yet there remains some sense of urgency. We have the city is on a fixed income. And meanwhile, costs are increasing. As a builder, I could have built you a home 12 years ago for $500 a square foot, and now it's 800 plus, and it's who knows what it's going to be in the next 10 to 12 years. And so the city, you know, the world insists that we must progress in such ways, and I'm happy to see that fellow council members, previous council members, members of the community are accepting the fact that development is inevitable for sustainability of our good city. And I just think that I would like to, again, consistent with Mr. Zender's, not direction, but the information that he's provided us with, I would like to honor the interest of option number one in the developer that has expressed interest here tonight. And it's important to note also that this is not, at this juncture, by action of the council, we will not be entering into the exclusive right to negotiate. This is just to entertain discussions to see if this is to explore the feasibility of that arrangement tonight. So I think that in such an order, this makes the most sense. This is the most prudent action at this juncture for the city to explore that relationship, that cooperation first. And then we always have option number two and option number three. But I think that first and foremost, thank you for showing up tonight. But I think that this is the most this is the best action for the city. So I strongly support option number one. I'm interested in hearing the remainder of the council's comments and discussion, but that's the direction I'm headed in at this point. Not sure how the motion might be crafted or the direction will be given at this point, but that's the direction I'd be headed in. Thank you.
Right, thank you. Councilmember Shirley.
Thank you, Mayor. One of the things that David Zender said as he was responding to Councilmember Uli is that, you know, if option one doesn't work out, if it's not what you want, then you go to option number two. And I think, what do we want? We've never had that discussion. That has never been a community discussion. That's not been a discussion that we've had on the council. There is no direction that has been given. And I think I do not want option four. I do think we need to go down this road of trying to figure out if we could do development. We have worked with developers who have shown interest. That didn't work. We put out an RFP. I'm not sure how thorough that RFP really went out. I don't know how robust that was. That didn't work out. I think this is the biggest thing that we will be doing in our city from here on out. This is it. Like, it seems like we would be faltering in our duty if we did not start from the beginning and go through a process that involved our input, that involved your input, that we could put something out there where we can maybe have some competition between developers. And Mr. Fletcher, thank you for being here. You do offer a lot for us in that you know the property well, and I acknowledge that, and I think that is beneficial to you. So even in an RFP process, I think you could maybe even come up on top, but I would feel better if we went out for an RFP process first. And again, as David mentioned, we can kind of mold that to be something that fits our budget. Right now, we're sitting on money that's unappropriated. We haven't given any direction on how we want to spend that money. We could use that money to put out an RFP, right? And then really feel good at the end of that process that, like, we did our due diligence and now we know that we have some developers that are interested. If we went with option one or option two, I would feel neglectful. I would feel like we weren't doing our due diligence as a council to really have a thorough process that would bring back enough information, either from the public or from us, to really understand how we want to move forward. So my option is option three, because again, I think that is the responsible way to go with this very large decision that we have for our city.
All right, thank you. Vice Mayor Berger.
Thank you, Mayor. Pardon me. The money that Councilmember Shirley refers to right now is earmarked as a pretty good source of revenue for the city based on it's an interest-bearing account. We are relying on that, and there's money there that we could use to do some projects here in the city, but we've decided to hold off because we're concerned of economic downturns where we might need to reach into those funds to pay for things like our police pay raises and things that are going to come in time. Plus, if we have an economic development or downturn, pardon me, we could see revenues drop from some of our biggest taxpayers. And those are concerns that we really need to pay attention to. And so I'm not a fan of just spending money, especially money that is kind of dear to us right now. Many of you have sat, or some of you have sat in budget meetings and have heard the state of our finances. Some of you have actually sat here at the state of our current affairs annually. And if you've paid attention, which I know you have, then you know shoestring is a very light term. I'm not trying to add brevity to this, but it's important to know that from a business person's aspect, I'm not comfortable with this type of budget. And I need to find different ways to increase revenue at the same time as keeping customers happy and keeping our quality of service as high as we can. We have a luxury of having a police department. And I think we all like it. Some of us don't realize how much, some of us don't like some of the things that the police department lacks. And I understand that, and you're never going to find a perfect situation, but you need to look at how good is our situation. And considering what we have a wonderful police chief, we have wonderful staff in the police department. Our police officers are kind, caring people, and they wave at us as we wave back at them. You don't get that in many cities, and if we lose our police department because we don't have the money to support them, which we're not far away from doing, I'm not trying to scare you, but go to a budget meeting and you'll understand it. Please, go to a budget meeting. Or go to the annual report meeting. And it's discouraging to even hear what Mr. Hayworth came up and said that he had to go knock on doors to we all know what an assessment is. Have you ever lived in a condominium association? We need a new roof. Everybody has to pay out. But we're paying association dues already. But we're paying property taxes. But you still have to pay out because we don't have enough money to pay for those things. And that's something I need to be really careful about, how when we use the terms that we have this money isn't there to just be picked up and just thrown at things. We need to be very, very wise with how we spend it. It's a challenging decision. I would love to have a beautiful Fort Ord to enjoy, but there's so many things that run against us by not developing it, including legalities of what happens if some homeless person that lives up there, who's a human being, were to get hurt because the meth lab caught on fire. It exists out there. I've seen it. We've all seen it if we've been out to Fort Ord. And then that family sues us, or we lose our insurance because there's a wildfire there, which we would expose ourselves to losing our insurance. So I think the idea of not developing, and I'm happy Councilmember Shirley agrees with this, is not a possibility, really. But we have the property, and I think that we need to take the options that are going to get us to that point, but still allow us to have the input as a whole entire city and council to say, this is what we want, and this is what we'd like to have, and have a partner that's open to us to discuss this. And option 1 and 2 do offer that. And then, as it's been pointed out after Councilmember Ui's last question, and Councilmember Halleck had pointed out, we could always get to option 3, but I think we need to be not penny wise pound foolish, but economical and thoughtful about how we proceed. So I know there's been a lot of people here that have been pushing for option 3. I get it. I understand it. And I really respect what you're saying. But I look at things as I would refer to as a pragmatic business person. And I try to look at things from every angle, because I make decisions in my business that affect a lot of people, including the livelihood of not only my employees, but their families, and then my customers. And something that one of my staff members does wrong could affect that person physically. So I'll stop blowing my horn, but I'll say that I really think that we have a good council here. You voted for us, and we're here to do what's in your best interest, which is also our best interest. So please trust in us to do that. And I thank you.
All right, thank you. Yes.
Through the mayor, can I respond?
Sure.
Yeah. So Delray Oaks has an economic reserve fund. We have money set aside for some emergency if we were to lose revenue on something. We have that. We also have another pot of money that is available, and it is a source of revenue in the interest that it bears. But again, we haven't really had a robust discussion about development and how we want to move forward. And so I think that we need to think about those funds as an option, because if we go to option 1 and that doesn't work, we go to option 2, now we're spending all this money before we even get to option 3. And so that's why I feel like we should just go with option 3, manage it in a way that is economically feasible for us, but still gives us that information that we need to move forward in a way that incorporates our ideas and thoughts and gives us the data that we need to make a decision. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. great feedback from the public. Thank you for your comments. Great comments and questions from the council. And I agree. This is going to be one of the biggest things we do as a council because as what was alluded to, it determines our long-term viability for this city long after we're gone, because it's going to take a long time to actually do anything with this property. You know, when I'm out and about, I meet up with residents, and two questions usually come up when people see me. They'll either ask about the Fortag Trail or some piece of it. And then a lot of them will ask, hey, I see all these things happening in Marina, in Seaside, Sand City, and they ask me, why can't we do something like that? And what I tell them is, we have a very unique property that's different from Marina and Seaside because this is undisturbed land. So it comes with those unique challenges that you've heard. And that's what makes it difficult. And you heard from our development planner, our expert, that what's most important is finding someone that has knowledge of the issues up front, the boots on the ground that you mentioned, that have a skill set to deal with those unique challenges out there, because a lot of developers don't have that. And a financial ability to execute it. I mean, that goes without saying. That's with anybody. So as I look at the options, when I look at an RFP process, what I don't want to do is repeat what we just did with City Ventures. There was a public comment about getting proven developers. City Ventures was a high-level quality developer that had done numerous projects around the state, had received awards for what they did, and even more so, they had been involved with development on military properties that had been closed and then redesignated for development. They worked on a project up at Hamilton Air Force Base in Novato, and they did an outstanding job for them. So if you look at credentials going through that RFP process, they were a proven developer that seemed to fit what we have here. And even with that, they could not move forward. They couldn't get past the exclusive right to negotiate phase because it didn't pencil out for them. The challenges were too great. So that's what I fear with the RFP process. And that's all based on our expert. I mean, that's just, those are considerations that I think are very important. As I look at the other options, I want to make sure, as was discussed here, that we cast the widest net that we possibly can. So you look at option 1 and option 2, it somewhat limits what we do as a city. So I think we can do things to expand that. So, you know, I guess what I would offer is potentially an option that expands that with letters of interest to those that meet the qualifications, meet the criteria that our expert has just described. So maybe take an approach like that. And as was mentioned, if that doesn't work out, we have the RFP process that we can ultimately go to. But you all will be a part of that process. We do. This is the process right here to get us out of the gate and see if we want to move forward. After that, we've got an exclusive right to negotiate. You all will be here and we say, hey, we don't like any of the developers. And we move on to the next option. So that is the beginning of the process, where we're trying to get it out of the gate, give the city manager some guidance on how to potentially move forward. This process is not new, using those folks that have a unique skill, that have shown interest. Seaside just did that as part of their development for their front gate development that you see when you come into Fort Ord. They used a similar process to that as well. So it's not like we're proposing something that's unique. So that's something to keep in mind. And what I would say, there were questions about transparency. Just like what we're doing tonight, just like we will do on the following steps, it will be completely transparent and open to the public. And you'll get to help us decide on what we should do, or should we go to the next step. So I say all that to throw out there to the council that I see another option where we can expand option, I think it's option number 2, where there were 2 interested developers, where we provide guidance to the city manager to cast that net a little bit wider, look to see through a letter of interest if there are any other developers that meet that criteria. And then to add to that, if that doesn't work out, then we move on to the RFP process. So that's what I'm recommending. I would love to hear some feedback from the council. I'll start with Councilmember Uy.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And this is really like good discussions, and also getting feedback from our residents and our neighbors here, and also from the public, from the council. I mean, I'm just still getting back to this note that why can't we provide what we want, all those criteria, and then I know that it's gonna be through the RFP process, and so that all of the potential developers, including the Illinois Home Services, they can see and they can also participate in the RFP, because again, we want them to know what they are bidding on, So and first and foremost as well, for option 3, it seems like option 3 would have the better or a stronger due process optics, because again, we don't want like this perception that we're doing like back deal process, or playing favoritism, or we just pick some because of we have already a pre-selected like set of developers or partners. And that's also what concerned me because of transparency issue. I know that transparency looks like in different forms. So of course, the community will be involved in all of the. You're gonna have a say in this process. But however, we also need, on the part of the city, we need to be transparent in how we select our partners. So it's not only the input what we want is transparent, but also how we would select our partners, because that's really like one thing. And I also believe that in the RFP process, we have a better leverage in negotiation. As residents, as our community, we have a big say, because we can put it in the RFP what we want, and also what we really like aspire in our Fort Ord property there. So so that's why for a resident, I feel and I think that the option 3, going through the RFP process, would be the best option. I know that some said that it's gonna be like longer, but we just never know, because even if we start with option 1, and then if it doesn't go through, and then we go to option 2, it doesn't go through again, so it was still gonna be the same length of time, or length of time that we won't be having. All of those options has risk, in order not to go through. That is really like the thing that I have seen in here. But however, I'm looking at more on the transparency and also probably lesser litigation on to the city on the part if we're gonna do the right thing, and which is the more standard way, which is the RFP process. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay.
Yeah.
Councilmember Howard.
Thank you, Mayor Donaldson. With respect to my fellow council members' comments and those from the community, I maintain my position. I think that we should basically take the options in order as they're listed and presented to us in tonight's, in the not recommendation, but the information that we were given from staff. I would really like to explore immediately and foremost what IL Housing has to offer the city. If it's determined that we can't reach an exclusive right to negotiate, then we grant audience to other interested parties. If both those options are exhausted, we always have the RFP process as a final path. That's all. Thank you.
Okay. Councilmember Shirley.
Thank you, Mayor.
Mm-hmm.
So one of the questions I asked David Zender was if we could write the RFP in a manner that would solicit developers that had those skills that we were looking for. And that was one of the things that you were worried about, is that we have a developer here that seems to have the skills, and I think that we could have an RFP process that does solicit developers that have the skills. I guess I had a question for you in terms of like this letter of interest. Can you explain that more? Because it sounds like if you're going to put out a letter of interest, why don't you just put out an RFP?
Yeah, so I'll let the city manager talk to that.
Okay.
That particular process.
Yeah, I think if I understood correctly, you didn't mean us putting out a letter of interest. It would be soliciting a letter of interest from those. I've had other developers reach out and express an interest in this parcel verbally, but they haven't submitted a letter of interest like Mr. Fletcher has.
Okay.
And so it would be, yeah, so Shea Homes, which has done most of the home building in the city of Marina, they've expressed an interest, but I haven't received anything formal with them. I haven't had any formal conversations. So I think that's what the mayor was indicating, is those developers that I didn't include in the staff report, that we could go out to them, who are also familiar with the former Fort Ord and have done work in this region. Yeah.
Got it. Okay.
Hopefully I got that right.
Yeah, you did.
Yeah, I guess with those processes, again, with option 1 or 2, or asking for letters from those that are interested, those are developers that are driving our process and our decisions. And I just like the decision to start with us to figure out exactly, let's put an RFP out and let's see what we get. And again, that last RFP, the turnaround time was like a month. Once it went out, this could be a quick process. So I feel like we'd almost be sort of dragging out the process if we go to 1 and it doesn't work, and we go to 2 and it doesn't work, or who knows what kind of letters we get. Like, let's just start in a legit way with how this should be done, is you put out an RFP with some guidance so that we make sure, and it doesn't exclude anyone. It is open to everyone, and it increases competition. And it could be very time efficient for us if we go in that manner. I feel like if we start off with these other options, we could be spinning our wheels. And I'd rather have a process that has a very clear timeline that gets it done for us. So I guess I'm not in favor of what you're proposing, Mayor. I'd rather go with option 3 with the RFPs.
Okay. Vice Mayor Berger.
Thank you, Mayor.
Mm-hmm.
The city would solicit high-level conceptual proposals from those firms. The city's development team would work collaboratively with interested developers to refine concepts. Staff would return to council with recommendations regarding how, with whom to proceed. This option maintains the competitive tension while allowing a more streamlined and targeted process than a full RFP. This timeline would likely be shorter than issuing an RFP. This is from our Mr. Zender. I want to be clear that in the a little over 12 months that I've been on this council, transparency, I've never seen an issue. I've never seen an issue with anything. We've always maintained a transparent process. Everybody's always invited to our meetings. There's nothing clandestine, so I don't know why the transparency is an issue. And I think any dealings we would have with any developer would have to be absolutely 100% transparent, because I don't want to find out that I don't know something myself. So I just kind of concerned with some of the languages you used. Timeline, I think all three of these, especially 1 and 2, kind of push more of a timeline agenda. After hearing everything, I think there's a happy medium, and I think I would be happy with option number 2. Thank you.
All right, thank you. I would like to ask our economic development planner. So can you give us a breakdown in terms of time for the different options? You know, trying to get an idea in terms of the RFP process, the time involved, the resources involved. You already talked 6 figures involved money-wise. Can you do that relative to the other options and give us a better idea of the amount of time and resources?
Yeah, my general sense is option 1 begins immediately, and you're going to know within weeks whether there's a fit and whether it's workable. That's probably the lowest cost option because it's simply a number of meetings with a single entity. Option number 2 depends a little bit on what version of option 2 we're contemplating. But I think if we're following your suggestion of sending out some requests for letters of interest to the development community at large, I think that probably is maybe a 4-week process, something like that. And then there's probably a little bit of preparation in terms of some limited information that would be packaged so that these folks aren't dealing with, blank slate. So you'd want to give them enough information, sort of a resource page or something, to where they can learn about the property, learn about the city, et cetera. So it's probably maybe a 2-week period plus another, say, 4 weeks. And then you would have a short process of winnowing through the letters received and determining sort of who's real. And you're creating a viable list that's, in your version, I would take it to be more than 2, but not more than X. I don't know what the top number would be. My recommendation would be to try to keep it to a half dozen or so at the most. And then then you're into a scheduling process of meeting with each. And that process could take another easily a month, I think. So that's sort of how that one, then we would have to come back to you with the results and have a conversation about what we found in that process. And then we would determine whether we want to go to 1 or whether, it's possible there are 2, for example, really competitive entities, and perhaps there would be a subsequent Q&A period to obtain a factual basis for making that final determination. That's sort of what I think process 2 would look like, as kind of in your version of it. And then process 3, you would immediately embark upon the writing of the RFP. That doesn't necessarily need to take a lot of time. Could be, depends how detailed it is, really. I mean, so a very brief, something that would have more detail than what was previously issued, but not be totally extensive. Maybe that's a 2-week process to write that, 2 to 3 weeks There has to be city council review though, staff review and then city council review. So honestly, that's probably about a 4 to 6 week period, be my guess. And then we would need to do, while that's all happening, we could determine a distribution list, do the research to figure out the comprehensive sort of set of recipients or the publications that it would appear in, or whatever means of distribution we want to pursue. So we would determine sort of what that distribution list looks like. And I would imagine that would be more or less a staff discussion at that point. But that could come to council as well. So there will be some check-ins, and I don't want to presuppose exactly where those check-ins are. But I would see, just getting to an RFP that could be released is probably about 6 week period. And then you would probably allow for another, 4 to 6 weeks for a response. And then you would be, you could receive 2 proposals, you could receive 24 proposals. It's hard to know. And so when those come in the mail, then we have to go through them and read them and evaluate. And we'll have a scoring matrix. And there should be, before we do that, a discussion about sort of, what are we weighting in terms of, importance of specific criteria. So we should have a discussion around sort of what the criteria are and how important they are and what the rules are for scoring the received proposals. So then we would cut to a short list. Or maybe it would be obvious that this is the sort of part where we don't know what we're going to get. So it's hard to presuppose. So it could be a matter of say 3 months to get to a developer, or it could be longer. Yeah, that's sort of generally what I would see there.
Considering council schedule, and unless we did special meetings, we're probably looking at more like 4, 5, 6 months because we only meet once a month.
Okay. So it is significantly longer going through that process. It's not something that we could do relatively quickly. I mean, we're talking 6 months.
Yeah, so option 1 is gives us the ability to just move into discussions immediately. Option 2 is going to be that in-betweener, and then option 3 will be more involved.
Yeah, I'd say best case scenario, option 3 is 6 months. Yeah, before we come back with a recommendation.
Okay.
Through the mayor.
Yeah.
So, so option 2 was about 3 months. Is in adding up the weeks, roughly 3 months. So the RFP process could be 6 months. So we're looking at a 3-month difference. I just want to make that point. 3 months.
Possible. Yeah.
Yep.
It's hard to know.
Right. Yep.
Okay.
Yeah. Through the mayor.
Go ahead.
One more thing.
Mm-hmm.
I also liked your explanation in that, through the RFP process, there's some input. There's council input, like the idea of having criteria that we understand how to score. That seems really important. We're not going to have that if we do option 2. That's not part of the process.
Not necessarily. We can include that as well. I mean, depending on how we look at each one of these options, how we want to proceed and bring it to council, we determine that.
So can I interject?
Yeah.
So I've already sort of provided this rough list of criteria that I think are important to the selection to staff, just in a informal manner. But I think we know what those criteria are. And I think it would be, as the mayor has indicated, possible to communicate those criteria to Mr. Fletcher here, if we were to meet with him, or to Mr. Fletcher plus entity X and Y, if we went with option number 2. we can still be sure to discuss and also rate the responses. So I think that is a good point, that we can still make sure that your interests are represented.
Again, do we know what our interests are?
Yeah, so I guess what I'm looking for is to kind of, I know Councilmember Halleck, wants to start with one and go through, to three. And, Councilmember Shirley and Uwe, seem pretty, strong on, option three. Councilmember Berger, you seem to indicate that option two was preferable to you.
I'm still
So-
I'm still in a decision-making phase. Is there, could I, before we continue?
Yeah.
Respect, could I approach Mr. Fletcher with a couple of questions?
No, let's just keep it with our
Okay.
development team and, the entire team.
Okay.
But that's what you're leaning towards is the option two.
I'm bouncing back and forth at the moment. I'm trying to find a happy medium, a compromise, and I'm just bouncing back and forth right now. So,
Yeah, so based on that, I'm just trying to get those sides and kind of just meet me with a proposal that, or an option that's not part of the slate, that kind of addresses the issues that we have or the concerns that we have. I feel it's important that we include as many that are interested in this property as possible. But the key thing for me is, as our development planner had mentioned, is having the experience, the boots on the ground, understanding the challenges that are out there is so critical to it, because I'm afraid we go out with a proposal, we'll have folks like City Venture that come back and say, hey, we've done this before. And the amount of time it takes to them to get to the point, even if we said, yeah, that looks good, and we go with an ERN like we did with City Ventures, they end up realizing they can't do it. And that's what I'm afraid of. So it's not just the time to pull together all of the steps that Mr. Zender articulated. It goes beyond that. Even if we get to the point where we go to an ERN, just like with City Ventures, we spend that time for them trying to figure out if they can even do it, and figuring out the challenges because they don't know them. They haven't had those boots on the ground. That's another extended period of time that is somewhat wasted, because that's why we're back here at step one, because they couldn't find it viable for them. So that's why I want to take those considerations into play here, so that, knowing what we know, I mean, we've experienced this, that we at least allow those who have that experience, that skill set, those boots on the ground experiences, to propose to us what they can and cannot do. We don't have to go with them. It's not like, we're saying we're making a decision now, we're going to go with them. That's part of, like I said, that's part of the process, where we're going to discuss this with the public, discuss this with the council. So that's what I'm trying to get to. I've got council members on each side of it. I'm just trying to pull something together that takes into consideration what our experts saying, but yet make sure that it's an open process, that we cast the widest net that we possibly can. So that's what I'm looking at, maybe coming, a little bit in the middle here. Is there any feedback to that? Councilmember Howard.
I do. Thank you, Mayor Donaldson. So as you're describing as we're trying to approach some consensus here on the dais, I see myself as a tiebreaker of sorts, although Councilmember Berger seems to be wobbling between one or the other. Again, all options are feasible. I just, I would urge my fellow council members to really consider the invaluable, opportunity that we have with, a very qualified, highly qualified, applicant, I mean, at our door, and remind us all that tonight is not to enter into an exclusive right to negotiate. It's just to proceed. I really think the most sensible thing to do would to be at least entertain this immediate offer and see if it's a viable, a feasible arrangement for the city, which, by the way, would also be done under the same umbrella of transparency and public input. And I mean, before an exclusive right to negotiate is enacted, it would come back to council with all the details of such agreement, with the public invited, and so on and so forth, as the process always works. And I'm sorry, Mr. Fletcher, but to either accept that one or eliminate it, at least we have a first view of who's right here at the doorstep immediately. Who's just as qualified, if not more, than anyone we could potentially gather interest from, no matter how wide the net has been cast. And we've already had that experience before. So I think that for tonight's decision, that just seems to be the natural progression and the way for the city to act, to entertain the most immediate interest and then work through the process thereafter.
And I understand the points that you're making, but you know, if in a situation like that, his idea, his proposal is better, that will come to the top. That will be something that the council says, yes, we see that that proposal is the best one. Would you entertain, you know, realizing that that's a possibility in that process, that there's that others are allowed to also be a part of that?
In the interest of expediency and cost, of which this is minimal, I would still maintain what I've described as what I believe the process should be.
Okay.
So I have some questions, if you
Yes,
don't mind.
Vice Mayor Berger.
Mr. Zender, I'm sorry, if you could refresh me. If we went with option number 1, what would be the pro forma timeline to have something, you know, solidified with Lennar Homes?
You're asking what would be the timeline to bringing an ERN to the council for consideration?
Yeah.
As quickly as next month, but at most 2 months.
And I know this is a tough question to answer. I don't know if I can answer or ask this question appropriately, so I'm just going to slingshot it at you. Do we know if if Lennar Homes would still be interested if we went with option number 2?
I have no way of knowing.
Okay.
I'll hazard a guess and say yes.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you.
Councilman Shirley.
Yeah, thank you. Mayor, it sounds like you're like, I agree with you. We want someone who is gonna be boots on the ground, understands the land. I'm with you on that. And that is something, that criteria, that's criteria that we can put into that RFP, right? We can make it just as important as it would be in your option, in terms of, you know, asking for letters and really, you know, putting an emphasis on the developers that have experience with that property. We can do that with the RFP process. Like, you know, and as you said, like, we can make this what we want. So, you know, I feel like the RFP process, we could make that something that could work for what you're saying. You know, we are essentially, instead of asking for proposals, letters of proposals, we're saying, first, here, you know, here we are. And we are essentially just asking more people for letters of proposals. So in some ways, I feel like option 3 really is what you want.
Well, I would say to that, that we already have interested parties that do meet that criteria that you would suggest to put out in an RFP. I understand that. We can structure that RFP any way we want with that criteria. But if we already have developers that meet that criteria, that's what I'm saying, that we could entertain what they want to do, and we can either say yes or no. And based on Mr. Zender's um, estimation, to do that would take 2.5 months. I mean, if I'm adding up the time frame,
I think it was about
Really?
3 months. 3
three,
months.
2.5, 3 months. So what I want to do is we already know we have that. That's the point I'm trying to make. So I understand what you're saying, that we could structure the RFP to say that, but if we already have that, why not give them a chance? Because they've been there, they've got that expertise. Let's do that first, and then if it doesn't work, then yeah, we can structure that RFP the way we want. That's what I'm trying to get to, some sort of collaboration between what Councilmember Halleck is suggesting and what you and Councilmember Uy are suggesting, but still allow it to fulfill your concerns.
It doesn't eliminate that possibility, right? They are still as a legitimate developer in option 3 as they are in option 2. It's the same, right? So I am not discounting anyone. I am only opening the doors to have more choices. I would feel better. I feel like it's my job as a council person, as I enter into this decision that's big for the city, that I do a very thorough job at seeing what developers are out there. And I feel that it would be, it's our, we have to be diligent about money and time. And I feel like the RFP process may take a little bit longer, but it is the process we would have to go through. We wouldn't have to go back and do something else. It would be the process. That's it. If we're doing option 2, we're doing a process, but we're not opening up the doors to, you know, a much wider option in terms of developers. And you know, that may not work out. Then we're back to square one. Let's start at square one.
Yeah, and I am confident that we will do due diligence on whatever option it is. So I don't see one more diligent than the other. I think we got a great team that whatever we pick or whatever guidance we give to the city manager, diligence is going to be utmost in the minds of how we proceed. So I am confident in that. If you look at costs, obviously, you know, when you're talking 6 figures and you mentioned costs, it's clearly the most costly. All I'm saying is, if we already have developers that meet the criteria that we're looking for, let's hear them out. And let's see if it's something that the council would want to entertain. And if not, it's the 3-month period where we already have people that meet all that criteria. And if it doesn't, that's 3 months of time. Diligent, we will do. I am confident in the team that they will do a diligent job in laying it out to the council and our residents in doing that. So what I'm saying is, we already have what our expert is saying is most important. And I just want to give them that opportunity. 3 months go by, it's not something we want to pursue. We don't have to pursue it. That's all I'm saying. And I understand and I respect everything that each council member is saying. I'm just trying to say, hey, I understand what you're saying, but I think we can get to a spot where, okay, it's not optimal, but I'm trying to get people to the middle here and do a little bit of a compromise. Yeah.
Try to add some perspective. So, I mean, first of all, so what I kind of think I'm hearing is that there's this supposition that option one can fail, and then you go to option two. Option two can fail, and you go to option three. Option three can fail too. Option three is no better than option one or option two. So, excuse me, some perspective on how staff got here and why we proposed option one and option two, because option three is always an option. Option three is always the first option if you haven't already done option three many, many times as we have. So from the team's perspective, when we were discussing this, is that this is a very unique piece of property that we've already explored these options with outside developers who do not have specific knowledge of this property and Fort Ord. So that's why we came up with option one and option two, is that we have developers who have expressed interest, who have that specific knowledge and understand this parcel. So that's why we came up with option one and option two, so that you would have that as a potential option to pursue, to go just straight to those developers that we know have the wherewithal and the knowledge and the understanding and the training to get this project done. Going out to the broader world, worldwide, for developers is not necessarily going to get any better pool of, it's going to get a bigger pool, 100%. It's going to get a bigger pool, or at least a bigger potential pool, but it's not necessarily going to get us a better pool specific to our needs and our community and our very lovely, complicated parcel. So that's how we came up with these options. So just for some context, so you understand the thought process of your team and how we got here and why we gave you these options. They're all viable. They're all good options. It's just, I'm trying to help get to, let's just get something done out there and get there as quickly as possible. So that's just my 2 cents with some of the comments that are going on. So.
Okay, Councilmember Halleck.
Thank you, Mayor. I have one idea to proffer to the council, and that is that our option one and two, for all intents and purposes tonight, not very close to being one and the same, or could they not be, until the city enters into an exclusive right to negotiate with the applicant that is here present as number one, then do we not still have the liberty to put out requests for letters of interest, which may, and with respect, sir, you know where I stand, but which may very well have bearing on our decision in negotiating with the party in option number one. So could we not proceed, engage, and entertain in those discussions as a result of tonight, while also directing staff to put out or to broadcast 4 letters of interest, therefore satisfying options 1 and 2, and working towards some compromise, if that's possible. Legal might have to chime in on that, but I don't see why not.
Would you like to add anything now?
Nothing really. I mean, if you want to combine them, or as the mayor proposed, a hybrid of them, that's at your discretion. What you're doing tonight is just agreeing on a process, and it can be one of the ones presented, or it could be sort of a hybrid or an alternative that's not listed.
Yeah, and with that, what I'm trying to avoid is the council agreeing to an option where we only have one developer that we're taking a look at. I know it had been mentioned about perception. I think that's valid. To have only one developer and, okay, we're just considering this one developer, I think that limits it too much. I think we should have those options that we can discuss up front. Just like when we have proposals that come in, you get a bid for your property, for example, going to upgrade, doing an improvement. You get 3 bids. So at least allow those who have the experience, meet the criteria that was explained by Mr. Zender. I think that's important, because there is that perspective that is out there that will exist if we're just saying we only talk to one developer. That's what I'm trying to avoid. So that's why I'm trying to pull you a little bit this way. I'm trying to do the same with the RFP process, knowing that we can, like the city manager talked about, we can always do that. Let me go to Councilmember Uwe first. Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I really appreciate you for really like having a discussion in here and putting us really like into an agreement, you know. So I really appreciate that. But I understood all of the pros and the cons for each of the option. But I'm also thinking, what about fairness, Mr. Mayor? Because I know for option one, if we're gonna only be first looking at one developer, and then and I don't think the other developers would see that as that's fair. And then if we look at option two, and then there are probably three in there, like, you know, we don't know, we have lots of interest in there. But what about the other developers who could have been eligible and also, you know, but if they haven't heard about our piece of land, and so they would miss those opportunity, like for to be able to be one of the contenders for us. So that's why I'm thinking like, for fairness, because in my life as an immigrant and also a person of color, I've always been subjected to a lot of unfairness. I know that life is not fair, but if we could really like make it at least fairer, that would be a good thing. Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Yeah, and thank you for that comment. And I agree. That's why I mentioned that just entertaining one developer, I don't think that's a good idea because of what you just said. What I'll say regarding other developers that might be out there, I'll go back to how I initially started this. I want to try and avoid what happened with City Ventures, where we spend a lot of time to get to the point where they say, we can't do it. That's what I'm trying to avoid. And this is a solid developer. I mean, we had public comment say we need a proven developer. They checked all the boxes, but because they didn't have that experience, that specific knowledge of our property, I think that's why they couldn't continue. So what I'm saying is, I understand what you're saying, but what I'm trying to avoid is a situation like that. And in a year from now, or how long did it take the whole city venture process until they dropped out? A year. I don't want to wait another year, knowing that we potentially have developers that meet that criteria, understand the challenges, and are ready to go. And once again, the council, the public will determine whether we go with one. We don't have to. It's just, we've got people who meet that criteria. I just want to have a process that allows us to look at them. It's a 3-month, it'll take 3 months. And if it doesn't work out, yeah, we go to the RFP process, which is going to be lengthier, more costly, and that's fine. I don't have a problem with that. But that's why I'm trying to get, like I said, a hybrid, something that is not going to be perfect for any of you all. But I think it's important we make a decision tonight. So that I'm trying to get a little bit of each, you know, in terms of what your concerns are, and realizing it's not going to be perfect. Yes, Councilmember Shirley.
Oh, I said my hand.
Oh,
Okay,
go ahead.
Sorry.
Vice Mayor Berger.
Thank you. I feel there's more of a guarantee with, I mean, let's face it, Lennar Homes, Shea Homes, and I don't know what the other possible names that are in the hat. These are household names. I don't never like to assume, but I think it's pretty safe to say that they have a lot of funding behind them. So when it comes to chickening out because of the funding. I don't know if that's even on the table. But it does create good competition. I believe it's fair to have competition. And I see of the three options, it's the middle of the row when it comes to taxing our staff. So I'm going to support number 2. I think that is a happy medium between the three. It should satisfy. It should satisfy as a compromise. I think everyone. Thank you.
Okay, Councilmember Shirley.
Your last statement was that cost and timeline wasn't that big of a concern. And so then so why not an RFP? Because we would then know, I would feel more comfortable choosing a developer if I had greater choice, or if I knew we had cast a wider net, and I could do some additional comparisons. If we choose just the people who are interested, yeah, that one of them will probably look okay. And I'll always wonder, was there someone else we could have chosen? I don't know. I think it's going to be really hard to say no, because again, we haven't established exactly what our criteria is. I mean, I think staff and our development team maybe has, but I'd like that communicated to us. I just feel like if we're going to go through this process, let's make it a robust process. It doesn't have to be that much longer, and we can dial in the cost to make it work for us. So, I guess at the end of this, I don't want to have any regrets. And it feels with the third option, that would be a process that is done across the board in lots of industries. This is what you do. Let's just do that process. And I want to feel at the end that, yes, we did what we were supposed to do, or we did what was, going to net us the most information. And so I can make an informed decision on something.
Yeah, I'll just say any process we pick is going to be robust. And I guess with the RFP process, what I was trying to say is that process is obviously going to take a lot more time.
3 months.
Took us a year with City Ventures. And yeah, 3 months to take a look at the ones that are interested right now. So I just think that's worthwhile. That's what I'm saying.
3 months difference between those two options.
And I'm trying to take into consideration everybody's concerns and trying to find something that works. And I think we owe it to the public to make a decision tonight. So like I said, I'm hoping someone or as a group we can compromise here. Councilmember Howitt.
Thank you, Mayor. I am steadfast in my opinion on this matter. What we have is that specific knowledge that you mentioned, direct working experience, particular to this piece of property, a working knowledge not only of their own, but in working with planning consultants that we have worked with for, again, a long time, that has the greatest knowledge of this piece of land of anyone that we could hope to find. I don't see how anyone that we would entertain any offers from would have a greater knowledge. They could eventually, but that would take some time. And I think that just warrants the first look and the pecking order, for lack of better description, to entertain this offer tonight, either accept or eliminate, either on our terms or perhaps theirs. They may decide that we're not the right fit for them. But either way, to explore that first and then proceed to options 2 and 3 in that order. And that is where I'll rest, and that is where I'll stand for the duration of the meeting.
Okay. Okay. Any other comments?
I will say that it looks like 2 of us are favoring option 3. And I will point out that your sort sort of little edit to option 2, I feel is more closely aligned to option 3. And so if we want to make a decision tonight, let's go with option 3. And I would ask for you to support that because, again, it's the same thing we're asking for letters from developers. Let's show them what we want and ask them for their proposals.
Did you want to add anything,
No,
Vice Mayor?
I think that, I've come, having gone from being very comfortable with option 1, I think I've been very fair in making a compromise here. And saying that I think option 2 would be a good way, that would be fair, would offer competition and get this process started in a quicker fashion and being less impactful on staff than option 3. And of course, the monetary aspect. I think I did come back with a compromise, and I think I'm the only one.
And that is option 2.
Yes, sir.
Okay. And you're not willing to move on towards option 2?
Thank you, Mayor. In the interest of time and appropriate use of city resources, and so on and so forth, I sincerely hope that if option 2 is agreed upon, that IL Enterprises, the IL group, Mr. Fletcher, will continue to show their interest and apply to that process also in that pool of letters of interest. And so I will concede after all, and I will agree to option 2 as a compromise.
And as part of that, I don't know if we specifically need to say it, but I think it is important that after we would go through that process, that if it doesn't work, then we go to the RFP. Would that be implied? I'll ask the city manager, would that be implied with that, or can we specify that will happen?
Yeah, you could certainly specify that, or we
Okay.
do that at the next.
I mean,
meeting.
for me to be comfortable with it, I would like to specify that that's in fact what we would do. So it is kind of what I was looking for. I would like it to go farther in that we include more than just the 2 that are in option number 2. But I'm willing to go that direction. Yeah.
I apologize, Mr. Mayor, but I thought that, or we were told that it could be 2 or more, that it wouldn't just be Lennar and Shea. I thought that we could send letters out to more people soliciting a proposal. It's option 2.
Yeah, to the developers who have experience on Fort Ord who have already expressed interest to me.
Which is more than 2, correct?
No, it's 2 others.
So we couldn't.
Okay, so it would take into consideration how many total? I guess that's what
it would be 4 total.
Before 4 total.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, but I mean, I haven't talked to them recently, so I don't know what their interest currently still is.
Okay, so if I could get a motion that says we will consider all developers that have expressed an interest after, so the guidance we give to the city manager is to talk to those who have expressed an interest. Right now, you're saying it's 4, correct? Okay, to talk with them, and consider then, those 4 developers that are interested. And if we're unable to come to a consensus as a council on that, it would move to the RFP process. That's, I think, a motion that expresses that, I think captures what I've been talking
I'll
about.
support that motion. I'll make that motion.
Okay.
Do I have to?
Are you making a motion?
I'm making that motion. Do I
Okay.
have to repeat?
Okay, do I have a second on that? Okay, we need a second to proceed.
structure, does that stipulation, need to be clarified? Unless there is a majority or consensus reached, the developer to choose to enter into an exclusive agreement to negotiate from the pool of four. If all four reciprocate such interest, then the default is to move to the RFP process.
The guidance, yeah,
Naturally, that would be the progression either way. So do we need that stipulation?
yeah, I think we do. And really the guidance to the city manager is reach out to those that have expressed interest, pull together what they are proposing so that it can come back to the council. And what I'm saying is,
Okay,
at that point-
I'm not understanding what you mean by consensus. So, all right, so you want me to get proposals from the developers and then rather than the development team meeting with the developers, bring them back to the
no,
council?
do that. And at the point where you're able to bring it back to the council, that's when you would
With
do
the,
it. After-
yeah, and that's what Councilmember Halleck was meaning, is that that would be the natural progression, because then we would be coming to the council with a recommendation of the
Exactly.
developer. So I don't think that needs to be stipulated, but it can, it's fine.
No, if that's understood, I'm fine with that.
Yeah, because we would need council direction and approval to do
Right.
it in our end.
That's
Yeah.
exactly,
All right.
exactly like you described is the way that I.
So yes, Mayor, with a friendly amendment to strike that stipulation, I would second that motion. Do you want to verbalize that,
it's-
the exact language?
It's Councilmember Berger's
So,
motion.
so for clarification, that we would entertain proposals from 4 developers, or maybe there's a 5th out there hanging out there.
There's 4.
There's 4. Okay, thank you. And then our consultants would then look at, process, absorb, and then report back to us, and then we would be able to move forward. And then if we can't move forward, then we would then go to Plan 3? Is that,
Yes.
is that a nod from everybody? And I,
So is that, yes, that's, so
Okay.
is that consistent with?
All right, let's leave it in there.
we don't
Second,
have to leave it in there. It's
Okay,
gonna
so
be-
we do have a motion and we do have a second. Councilmember Shirley.
So in this process, the council nor the public gets to see, or maybe this is a question, do they get to see those proposals? Or is it just the development team coming to us and saying, here's the one we picked? And we don't get to compare them to anything.
No, I'll allow
that right?
I'll allow the city manager to respond to that, but it's like, any other staff process. They're gonna pull together all the information, make a recommendation to come back to the council, but I'll allow the city manager to
Yeah,
discuss
and
details of that.
David can probably elaborate too, but so it's not a proposal as you're probably thinking of a proposal. We aren't going to see a project. They aren't.
No,
going to
of
do a-
course not. No,
Right.
yeah, no, I understand that.
So it's really more of a dialogue with them and asking questions and feeling them out and what works, what do they see as a potential opportunity on the parcel, listening to us on what we think needs to happen for the city and for the community, and what process do they envision going forward to get community development, to work with the community and get us to a point where we can get a development agreement and then get development started out there. So it's really more of that. And David, maybe you want to elaborate on that?
Yeah, these will be structured discussions. It's not just going to
That's
be.
not public though.
True, but you will know what our, the criteria that we're going to be looking at include things like the general fit, with the city, the financial resources, their experience that's relatable, what their capital stack, their access to various funding sources, debt and equity is, what they're looking for from the city in the way of if they want tax increment financing or some other public financing mechanism, so forth and so on. So we will have a very, very concrete sort of list of categories that we will go through with each of the candidates. And then we will write up our notes and then do some analysis internally, and then bring you our recommendation and answer all your questions. And if we have to, we can go back out with follow-ups. So it would be very careful and very fair and very sort of organized.
Yeah, this will be similar to the process that City of Seaside just went through to select their developer for, I think it was the Main Gate project. They, rather than doing a full RFP, they did well, in their words, in the city manager's words, a beauty contest with known developers who they were confident could get something done, and went through this process. Yeah, that's, I mean, it's really up to you guys. If you want to do a process where developers come and give presentations to the community and the community asks the questions, and that's up to you guys. I wouldn't recommend it. I don't think that would be fruitful, but it's an option.
Yeah, and that's something that we can entertain down the road, absolutely. Okay.
Yep.
Thank you. Okay, we have a motion and a second, and Karen, I'll ask for a roll call vote.
I respectfully cannot support Mr. Mayor because of the lack of transparency in there, because the public won't have really like a say on the criteria, and also it would be less fair for all the other developers or prospective developers out there. Okay.
Yes.
No.
Yes.
Yes. Okay, so motion passes, and I'll just say, this is such an important thing that I think the time that we spent on it and the dialogue that we had was well worth it. I know it took a lot of time, but given the importance of what we're trying to do and we want to make sure we get it right, I really appreciate the input from every council member. And like I said, I think this time was well worth it, and I appreciate the public that hung in there to listen to all of it. Okay, with that, I'll go on to new.
So, a couple things.
Yes.
So with respect to council, it's not policy, but council approved procedure, we are past 9 o'clock. And so if we want to continue, you all need to vote on continuing the meeting.
Okay, do I have a motion to continue the meeting?
Let's continue the meeting.
Do I have a second? Second?
I second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
No?
No.
No?
No.
Okay, we have a,
You-
go ahead and do a roll call vote.
Aye.
Yes.
No.
Yes. Okay, so we'll continue the meeting. New business item 8B, and that's the status update of the garden center.
Okay, so I'm going to be really quick. This is really just getting it out there so the community is aware that we have this property in Work Memorial. Everybody knows it used to be the garden center. The garden center is no longer there, so we have a vacant building. We are aware that there's a vacant building there and that there's a lot of opportunities for what we can do down there. But as I've heard said several times tonight, why rush? So we're not going to rush into something and just jump on the first opportunity to make some revenue. You know, there's an opportunity to hear from the community, hear from the council, hear from our consultants on what are opportunities down there. My preference is that we look for economic development opportunities, and as I said, broadening revenue streams beyond what we've seen down there before. But this isn't the time to do that. It's too soon. It's fresh. We haven't even, right now, we're just using it as staging for Fortag construction. And we're going to have a brand new trail down there. We're going to have new tennis courts and pickleball courts. All of that is going to be a potential draw for people. So I think this is something we need to enter into thoughtfully as a community and get a lot of input. We need to consult our experts on economic development and what will the industry bear out down there. We want something that's going to be for the future benefit of the community. You know, because we've heard a lot of ideas like a swimming pool or a bridge club room. And those are all great ideas, but those aren't revenue generating and they cost a lot of money to construct and to build, and then to maintain and to staff and all that. So before we have any ideas and before we do anything, we need to understand what our little community can tolerate and what we can manage from a resource perspective. And so if it's not going to at least sustain itself, then we need to understand that. But like I said, as your city manager, I'm always beating the revenue drum. So I'm going to be looking at economic development. You all tell me I'm crazy and you guys come up with other ideas. That's great. But we need to have a long protracted process for that. So we make sure we get as much input as possible from everybody, but that input is guided by some data and metrics so that we make an informed decision going forward, something that's going to benefit the city and not actually be an albatross around the city's neck. So at a future date, David will come forward and he will give us, in 2021, he gave us an opportunities and challenges assessment for all of the city's properties. That property was included, but the world was different in 2021 and we were looking for different outcomes from that, housing being one of the primary ones. So his review of that is a little outdated. So we want to refresh that and come back with what he's seen in the local economy and also with our now broadened opportunities of what we can do down there. So that's my long-winded way of saying stay tuned and stay engaged so you can come and tell us what your ideas are for how you'd like to see that property used in the future.
All right. And this is just an update, so there's no action required, but are there any questions or comments from any of the council members? Councilmember Uy.
Yes, thank you so much, Mr. Mayor. And John, thank you for this update. And just a quick, because if residents would be asking us, how would they provide input to this? Like if ever they have ideas for that.
Well,
Yeah.
respectfully to all the great ideas out there, I've already heard several. Right now is not the time because we're not ready to do anything down there or to even talk about it. We will have public meetings and we will have specific set aside town hall meetings. Or I'm saying this as if you all already agree with me, but I'll come back and talk to you all about the process that you want to see and how. But yeah, town hall meetings and. But we'll start talking about this through budget because there's been discussion about the fund balance, which has been set aside for most of our capital improvement projects already. So if we are going to use that money for other things like development or for doing something down there or doing something in the public works yard or on Rosita, then I have to come back to you and talk about, okay, well, what other public works projects, capital projects do we not want to fund with that money? Because for those of you who live on this side and drive Rosita, you've seen that we now have a problem with Rosita that's going to have to be fixed and that's going to cost money and that's not in the budget. And we, parking lot is slipping into the park and and that's going to be more expensive than we thought. So, so there's going to be a lot of discussion. So we'll probably kick these discussions off maybe just at a high level in next year's budget development, but really the focus will be on paying for consultants to come and help guide us in that in those discussions.
Yeah, thank you for that clarification, John. Thank you.
Okay. Any comments? No.
I just have a quick question. I had a resident who asked about the water allotment on there. Like, would it be enough to have a restaurant?
So I'm not sure exactly what the water allotment is for that building. It's a break. Well, I don't know exactly, but remember we do have 6 acre feet that were allocated to us and that is
Right,
at the
but-
pleasure of the council, how you
Yeah.
want to use that. And
Okay.
Economic development is one of those. So,
Yeah.
so we have plenty of water for a
Okay.
restaurant. Yeah.
Okay, that's it.
Vice Mayor?
I think it's going to be exciting to see what Mr. Zender and what the public brings to us. I think it'd be really, really kind of neat because I mean, we all have our ideas, but we don't have this, collection of what's been done in other places and what's been successful. And I don't know the trends. So I'm excited to see it very much so.
Okay. All right. Yeah. Any public comment or question regarding the status of our property down there? Okay, seeing none, I'll move on to the next item, which is item 8C is consider first reading of an ordinance prohibiting metal detection activity on our city property on the former Fort Ord, which seems like a high adventure hobby. Somebody would want to take that up. City manager.
All right. Yeah, so the recommendation, or let me just read it to make sure I get it. So the recommendation tonight, this is a pretty standard boring one, is that the city council introduce the by title only and waive full reading and pass a first reading of an ordinance to add to Delray Oaks Code Chapter 15.48, Section 140, to prohibit metal detecting activity on city property that was part of the former Fort Ord. So back in 2003, when we took ownership, when we started the process of taking ownership of the parcel out there, like I said, it's a complicated parcel. There's unexploded ordnance. The Army conducted ordnance removal out there, but they couldn't get everything. So one of the stipulations on us taking ownership of the parcel was in 2003, we passed, just for clarification, we passed or adopted, the council adopted ordinance number 259, which specifically regulated digging and excavation on all the former Fort Ord properties. DTSC, Department of Toxic Substance Control at the state, came to all of the former Fort Ord jurisdictions and requested that we update our ordinances to add a restriction banning metal detecting out on the parcel so that scavengers don't go out to look for souvenirs with metal detectors and accidentally detonate something. So it's simple. We're doing this at the request of DTSC. We've sent the ordinance changes to them. They've approved them as written. And I would be remiss if I didn't say we owe a huge thanks to Melissa. I don't know where Michelle just came. Yeah, Melissa Brodston from City of Seaside. She exemplifies. Thank you. She exemplifies everything that is admirable in a public servant. Public service is at the core of everything that she does. And so she always thinks regionally. She never thinks just about Seaside. And so she reached out to us and worked with us on this and gave us what she had done at City of Seaside. And so, huge thanks to her because she really keeps us all on track with all of our responsibilities with the former Fort Ord and our ESCO requirements and all of that. So I know she's not watching, but I'm going to tell her to watch this because she's a huge asset to Delray Oaks and she works for Seaside. So, all right, with that, I'm available for questions.
Okay, I'll start with Councilmember Uy.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you again, John, for this. I'm just like thinking, of course, we've been talking about development on Fort Ord, and I was just thinking about our developers. How would this ordinance affect them? Like they can't do metal detecting like when they're developing the property there. I don't know.
Yeah. So this won't affect them because there's a whole different process that the Army oversees and DTS oversees with developers before any development can happen out there, especially with the areas that haven't been cleaned, like the Grid 11 area. And I'm not an expert on it. I don't understand the technology. Unfortunately, Erin just left. She's better at understanding the technology, but they have some special technology that's different than metal detection.
Okay, I see. And then
It's sonar related.
okay, and once our Fort Ord property is already being developed, So there are already homes there. So would this still apply? Like, what do you think? Like, are people still banned to do metal detection up their backyard?
That's a good question. That'll be something that we'll have to explore through the development. There are already restrictions on the property by the Army and DTSC for anything that's out there that you can only dig so far down, even after we build homes out there. But yeah, that's a good question. I'll ask about that. Yeah, thanks.
That's all, Mr. Mayor, from me.
Okay, thank you. City Attorney had a comment.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. With respect to Councilmember Ui's question, there is a carve out for this provision, this ordinance not to apply where it can be authorized by a development permit. So if someone came in for a development permit, we would work with state and federal to say, you can do it here or there pursuant to some sort of program. I think this is mostly aimed at recreational type folks. And then there's another carve out that says, if authorized by a state and or federal agency for remediation or similar purposes. And so to your question about how this will affect developers, I would imagine any development permit out there would speak to unexploded ordinances and provide the process by which they could remediate.
And through the mayor, Alex, what about if it's already been developed? There are homes there already, and then are there stipulations in there that, or it would still gonna be banned? Like residents will be banned to do metal detection?
Yeah, if it doesn't meet one of the three carve outs here, which is under a permit for development, a city project on city land, or is authorized by the state or federal agency, in that case, yes, it would be prohibited.
Okay, thank you for the clarification. Yeah, thank you.
Okay. Councilmember Howlett?
Thank you, Mayor Donaldson. So digging and excavating has already been covered. So this really focuses on electronic detecting devices, right? So visually, panning for gold in Arroyo del Rey is still a go for me.
Sure.
Okay, thanks. That's all I got.
Just tell the police where to look for you.
All right. Councilmember Shirley.
I have no questions.
Okay. Vice Mayor Berger.
Thank you, Mayor. No questions. I think this is great. I think that Councilmember Ui, as with the rest of us, has a very legitimate concern with safety. Am I correct in saying that? And this is exactly what this is doing. It's not just that someone might blow themselves up if they do just the right thing over the right mine. Just the fact that the terrain there is so rugged and you could trip and hurt yourself, you can break your neck. That'd be tough to do, but it's not impossible. And so, yeah, trying to deter any traffic of any sort on Fort Ord, I think this is great and supports our thinking. So, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, it's straightforward, great questions. So I'll take it out to the public if there are any public comments on this item. Okay, I'll bring it back to the council for a motion.
I'll make the motion. I'm sorry, if you'd like to go ahead and make the motion.
No,
That's
you
fine
go
with me.
for it.
I'll make the motion to move forward with this ordinance.
I second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
I
Aye. Okay, motion passes. City manager, did you have a city manager report?
Yeah, sorry, Mayor. And I
No, no
forgot to bring it with me, so I'm going to ad lib it. Just want to remind everybody that this week, and I'm going to look at Councilmember Shirley. Hopefully, she remembers the dates because I forgot to bring them. One of them was tonight, but we have community outreach meetings from Regen and from our haulers to get information to give information to you all about the hauler franchise agreement and to get input from the community on any new services you'd like to see. Or Karen? Oh yeah, they're on the website. So please look at the website. They require, I think all of them require registration prior, right? I think so. Or just the online ones.
Oh, they're all online.
Yeah. Oh, they're all online. Yeah, they do. They require prior
I was just gonna
registration.
go. Oh, I should
Okay,
go
yeah,
already.
you need to register. And so, yeah, look, it's very interesting stuff. And we need as much input as possible. The franchise agreement is coming up in a couple of years. And so your input would be invaluable to our decision-making on that and to the board's decision-making on that. So please take the time to watch those if you can, participate. And again, it's on our website, the information. Thank you.
Okay, council reports and correspondence are in the packet. Our next meeting is March 24th at 6 p.m. and we are adjourned.